Stick with me, you're about to watch my commander try to publicly break me, her absolute best combat recruit. She claimed I only needed one eye to see, literally ripping out my right eyeball barehanded. The other cadets were terrified. Me, completely calm. I stared right back, fully knowing the mighty Empire would never throw away a legendary overpowered soldier like me. But to understand this madness, we gotta rewind. This whole chaotic mess started way back in history, right when Earth completely collapsed. Our home planet was drained by infinite resource wars, then finally obliterated by some unknown aliens. Human survivors drifted through the dark void until hitting the jackpot Novis, a brand new planet mirroring our lost world perfectly. But yeah, peace was just a joke. 3 massive powers stepped up, carving this world into another endless war zone. First, the Batto Federation, a crazy melting pot of alien races. Then the Holy Alliance of the Crates, total fanatics wielding wild magic and psychic powers. And finally, us, the Acreia Empire. We brought pure steel. We had absolute mechanized discipline and blindly believed we were the ultimate supreme beings. I'm Luca, born straight, in the Empire's filthy gutters. Just another disposable commoner in a corrupt machine where arrogant nobles controlled life and death. But I refused to stay down. I forged my own body into a lethal weapon, completely shattering every physical limit. I chased one single impossible dream. I wanted that Imperial Guard spot badly, desperate to prove my ultimate worth to the Emperor. I pushed relentlessly. Every single breath was for the Empire. During the final trial, my pure instincts kicked in. I flawlessly copied elite noble techniques, completely deflected flying bullets with my blade, and wiped out the enemy targets in literal seconds. Absolute beast mode. Now pay attention, because this brutal performance is exactly what caught the commander's eye and triggered that insane, eye-ripping test. As a sick reward for surviving that torture, I scored a military-grade cybernetic eye, the ultimate price for power. While stuck in recovery mode, Cadet Number 12 randomly approached me. An elite noble prodigy named Alay. Shockingly, he didn't treat me like total garbage at all. The guy handed over top-tier painkillers, hyped up my combat skills, and actually complained about the Empire's garbage system valuing noble bloodlines over raw talent. A high-class noble acting friendly with a nobody commoner, unreal. I just coldly fired back, promising I was going to surpass him anyway. But honestly, we built a solid bond of mutual respect right there. 2 years passed. With my cybernetic eye locking in deadly perfect shots, we dropped into our very first real mission. The commander's strict orders were completely absolute. Wipe out an illegal crate outpost. 0 survivors allowed. But stepping onto the battlefield, our sacred heroic illusion instantly shattered into ashes. No enemy army anywhere. No fortified base. It was just a civilian village. Surrounded by burning flames and horrific screams, I finally locked onto my primary target, a little kid trapped against a wall, shaking and sobbing for her mom. Suddenly, my mighty sword felt incredibly heavy. For the very first time, the Empire's cold brainwashing completely failed. I actually hesitated. You and I both know this is treason. I faked a strike, told her to play dead, and spared her. Then absolute explosive hell broke loose everywhere. Boom, Alay, the noble bro who respected me, just got half his body vaporized by an energy blast. Garita, a desperate crate force user, was violently defending his home. I instantly charged right at him. I rapidly dodged his space-distorting magic, pushing my tired body way past its absolute limits to close the gap. I stabbed my blade straight into his chest, but he wouldn't drop. Pushing through the pain, Garita blasted his magic right at my head, completely shattering my helmet. The guy was literally 1 second away from crushing my skull into dust. But then he paused. He saw my terrified young face beneath the wreckage. Right in the middle of this bloody carnage, this hardened enemy actually showed compassion. He realized I was just a brainwashed kid. But me, 0 mercy. I viciously exploited his kind hesitation, plunging my blade infinitely deeper into his heart to secure the brutal win. But as his warm blood dripped down my hands and his lifeless body collapsed, the blind fanaticism driving me completely vanished into thin air. I won. I actually survived. But staring at the man who showed me mercy, lying dead among slaughtered civilians, I finally realized the pure, disgusting cruelty of the Empire I served. Luca stared out at the chaotic, destroyed village, haunted by the echoing screams of pure despair. Cut to the Acreia hospital wing. Luca is just floating in a recovery tank, blankly staring upwards. Floating nearby, Alay casually asked how almost kicking the bucket actually felt. Glancing at Alay in the next tank, Luca shot back that the noble should answer that question himself, considering he was the one who actually got half vaporized. Acting super smug about his shiny new cybernetic parts, Alay asked if Luca got any cool upgrades. Luca casually mentioned his new titanium bones and synthetic skin, joking that in a few years he'd literally be a completely robotic weapon. Then Alay dropped a theory he guessed the commander already knew about the Force user. He figured the rookies were clueless because it was a twisted test and the senior soldiers simply watched because they honestly didn't care to help. But Ali admitted something felt super weird. Both he and Luca took direct hits from that magic user, yet survived. That definitely wasn't some random coincidence. So what do you and I make of this? The enemy never actually wanted to kill them. A realization that left Luca absolutely stunned. Alright, stick with me here. Luca realized letting the enemy live was a massive mistake for an Imperial soldier like him. That stupid mercy was exactly why the Karatas kept getting destroyed, he thought, absolutely furious. Suddenly Ella turned totally, catching Luca off guard. He asked why Luca ignored that Karata kid. Staring right at him, Ella pressed harder. Seriously, why do it? Luca immediately looked away, getting defensive. He told Ella he was talking way too much, asking if he'd grown an extra tongue. Looking super guilty and full of regret, Luca finally muttered that it was just a mistake, one that would definitely never happen again. Fast forward. An instructor announced the trainees had just finished 2 whole years of their grueling Imperial Guard training. They needed to be perfect role models for the newbies now. Especially Luca and Ella, who were literally the top 2 cadets in the troop. The guy in glasses hyped them up, saying Luca and Ella could absolutely become big-shot centurions, bringing major glory to the Empire. He broke it down: every 1,000 guards in the force get split up into 10 different centuries, and each century is run by one elite chief centurion. When the guy left, Luca figured once they got their crazy body mechanization done, they'd probably end up stuck in the 10th century. Yeah, it was literally the lowest ranked group, but Luca knew grabbing a spot there was still a huge win for his future. Cut to the training arena, the boys are sparring. Ella winds up to throw a massive punch with his shiny new mechanized arm, but Luca he easily brought up his guard and blocked it. They kept trading heavy blows, going all out. Seeing the crazy improvement, Luca had to admit the noble kid got seriously buffed by that arm. But then bam, Luca swept his supporting leg with a lightning-fast kick, sending Ella completely tumbling forward. Now pay attention to this move. Luca goes straight for the face. He stopped right before smashing his nose, casually telling him, "That makes 124 rounds and 124 totally flawless victories." Later on, the guys chilled out, just staring up at the stars. Ella sighed, admitting he genuinely thought he had it in the bag today. Luca smirked, saying fancy new parts aren't a cheat code. The blonde noble shot back, saying Luca seemed super tense since that centurion speech. Luca completely agreed, confessing he really wished he had more real combat experience. Ella was like, "Dude, just chill for a second." Staring right back, Luca hit him with the sad truth: "Unlike you, I have no backup plan. That is why I always have to push my limits." He sighed, telling Ella he had raw talent but absolutely zero drive. Like, why even become a guardian anyway? Ella just smiled at the sky and dropped a total truth bomb. "I actually just wanted to be an archaeologist to dig up the ancient arcane civilization." Confused, Luca asked, "So why not just do that?" Ella pointed out that the Empire literally banned that subject, plus his snobby family would absolutely lose their minds over it. Luca called him totally spoiled for complaining about hobbies, reminding him that poor people out there are just fighting to survive their next meal. Ella totally saw that lecture coming, laughing that he was just trying to share a deep secret with his bro. "I know what you're thinking, but Luca gets serious here." He warns Ella that criticizing the Empire means game over if anyone snitches. Ella clapped back, "Hey, you're hiding my secrets too." Luca firmly replied. He only hesitated back then because his enemy wasn't an actual threat. Giving Ella a dead serious look, Luca declared his absolute loyalty to the Empire's sheer power. "Anyone against the Empire is instantly my enemy too." He warned the blonde noble that he definitely wouldn't be an exception. Ella just smiled at that edgy speech. Hopping down from the wall, he totally called Luca's bluff, calling him a liar. He looked right at him, saying if he was really a brainwashed fanatic, he would have totally tried to end him already. Walking off into the dark, Ella just told his buddy to relax. Looking super annoyed, Luca called him a massive idiot, muttering that he's gonna get himself killed. Boom, 1-year time skip. Now they're exploring a crazy uninhabited arcane zone on a recon mission. Ella touched the ancient ruins, completely geeking out over how mystical the place felt. The whole wall was literally radiating energy, millions of years old. With literal stars in his eyes, Ella asked if this wasn't the coolest thing ever. Star-exploring civilizations that outdate humanity, insane. Sweating bullets, Luca realized his friend just completely ignored his warning and crossed the line again. Trying to stay focused, Luca told him to watch his back since any enemy encounter meant an immediate deathmatch. But Ella was way too hyped up, joking that some heroic guard would just save them. That made Luca super nervous. Out of nowhere, a voice dropped a deep quote about the past, creating the present, and using history to predict the future. Honestly, a pretty solid reason to be a history nerd. Turns out it was Claude Raon, another fancy noble cadet. So, what do you and I make of this white-haired, red-eyed guy instantly flirting with Luca? Alright, stick with me, because you and I are about to watch a normal chat turn into total chaos. Luca drops into a fighting stance, warning Claude to back off. Claude just tries chilling him out, saying he only wanted to introduce his sister. He begs Luca to just think about it. Eli cracks up over Luca being so popular, but Luca snaps at him to shut up. Then the ground completely shakes. The leader barks out combat formations immediately. He and Claude push to the front, ordering Eli's squad to cover their backs. Spotting a strange bright light deep in the trees, Luca squints to see. A dark figure stands dead still, a glowing cube floating right above it. Luca's eyes go wide with absolute terror, recognizing the shadow. A corrupted paladin, covered in clean silver armor. Feeling their presence, this absolute monster slowly turns around. The two trainees totally panic. Their cover is completely blown now. The paladin raises one arm, summoning a sharp spear sparking with crazy energy, and aims it straight at them. Now pay close attention because you and I are about to see something brutal. Luca screams for Claude to run, but the knight hurls his attack insanely fast. Totally frozen, Luca watches in pure horror as Claude takes the full hit directly. Blasted backward, Claude's body literally explodes in a crimson spray. Completely terrified by this brutal attack, Luca screams his friend's name. Meanwhile, the paladin does not even move an inch. That deadly spear simply smashes right into the wall of an ancient pillar. Reaching out his hand, the paladin easily wraps the spear in his raw power, again pulling the weapon straight back into his grip. Completely stuck in place, Luca stares at Claude's shaking body on the dirt. Pure horror washes over him, remembering their joke from earlier while looking at the absolute mess left of his good friend. That spear moved so incredibly fast that half of Claude's entire body is just gone. Luca desperately tries turning on his mechanical eye but gets zero response. Glaring at the paladin's outstretched hand, Luca silently prays his eye will finally boot up to calculate that spear's deadly path. Out of nowhere, heavy gunfire blasts toward the knight. He quickly throws up a magic shield to block it all. It's Eli's squad. They push forward fast, screaming for Luca to fall back and regroup. You and I both know running isn't an option here. Keeping his gun locked on the paladin, Eli yells they must fight and buy time. Luca knows he's absolutely right. Escaping is impossible now. There is only one choice left. Pulling out his red sword, Luca gets ready to scrap. Thinking about the Imperial Guard officers, he knows he just needs to stall until backup finally gets here. Luca and the paladin lock eyes. The desperate bloody race against the clock officially begins. The paladin chucks that fatal spear at Luca again. He barely dodges, but it grazes his head, ripping half his helmet clean off. The knight easily controls the energy, making the spear flip its path and loop right back at Luca from behind. Spotting the weapon flying back, Luca knows instantly he has zero time to dodge. A near-death memory flashes back Commander Castoria's cold voice, echoing that the Imperial Guard absolutely does not need any weaklings. Hyped up, Luca shifts his stance, raising his sword to block. He perfectly clashes his blade right against the flying spear. He knows he must strike before the paladin moves again. The heavy impact completely shatters the raw force wrapping the spear. A massive explosion blows up, kicking massive dust everywhere. Eli screams Luca's name in panic. A broken chunk of Luca's sword goes flying off, spinning wildly before stabbing into the dirt. Standing in the smoke, Luca is totally disarmed. His hand is completely wrecked from blocking that hit. Staring down the paladin right in front of him, Luca braces for impact. This time the knight grabs his own sword hilt. A sick blue aura explodes from him. In one deadly swing, he unleashes 3 slashes, forming a lethal triangle flying straight at the trainees. Luca barely dodges, but his right arm gets sliced. But the attack keeps going, hitting the backup squad behind Luca and cutting everyone down. Realizing the paladin wasn't even aiming for him, he looks back in pure shock, screaming for his friends who just got hit. Using Luca's distraction, the paladin rushes him fast. Absolutely terrified and refusing to die right here, Luca still sees zero way out. Out of options and total desperation, he screams and jumps straight at the paladin, who is already winding up another fatal strike. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, someone is rushing in using thrusters to boost their speed, flying faster than ever. The red-cloaked guard pushes deeper into the woods. So what do you and I take from this? Backup is everything. He arrives seeing an unarmed Luca about to die. Right before impact, a hand grabs the paladin's head out of nowhere. Totally shocked since he missed the guard arriving, Luca stares. Alright, stick with me. You and I are about to witness the craziest rescue ever. Luca realized the Imperial Guard finally arrived, instantly slamming the paladin into the dirt by his skull. Engines roaring, he boosted his leg's propulsion, and just totally dragged the guy's face across the rough ground. One hand on the head, the other whipping out a pistol, he blasted the knight's back with a barrage of shots, still casually grinding his face through the dirt. Savage. Spotting the massive ancestral pillar, the guard just chucked the paladin right into it. Boom, a massive explosive impact. Watching the sheer force literally shake the pillar from afar, Luca was gasping for air. He literally couldn't believe he was still breathing. Through the thick dust and heavy smoke, his savior approached. Stepping out of the haze, the imposing figure was confirmed to be a senior. Luca totally lost it, screaming in pure hype, thinking he was finally safe with backup. But hold up. Right behind the guard, this stubborn paladin planted his sword, struggling to stand. Glancing back with a terrifying red aura, the senior locked eyes with the knight who just glared through his broken mask. Squaring up against the paladin, the guard got ready for round 2. Meanwhile, the battered knight used his sword like a crutch, refusing to quit. Hefting his massive axe, the senior aimed it right at his enemy. Watching from afar, a breathless Luca analyzed the crazy showdown. An Imperial Guard rocking a Legion armor versus a Holy Knight using the Force? Epic? Now pay attention, you and I need to watch this carefully. As both monsters clashed, an insane, blinding flash and massive shockwave erupted everywhere. Locking eyes, they went all in on a raw power struggle. Against a gloomy sky, these two absolute beasts started trading heavy hits in mid-air. The explosion from their mid-forest brawl was so huge you could see it miles away. Non-stop, relentless attacks. Neither fighter gave the other a single second to breathe. Seeing this madness, Luca realized what peak performance looked like. The senior was fighting so fast, his weapon was just a total blur. While they tore each other apart, Luca desperately prayed for the guard. Direct hit, using his weapon's built-in propulsion for a mega boost, the guard completely shattered the paladin's blade into tiny pieces. Not missing a single beat, the senior grabbed the knight's head again. Activating his mech arm's engines, he applied absolutely lethal skull-crushing pressure. But get this. While getting his helmet crushed, the paladin stealthily coated a distant spear with his force. That exact spear stuck in the dirt right behind Luca suddenly glowed with intense energy. Catching on to the sneak attack, Luca stared at it, absolutely terrified. Flashing back to Claude, Luca knew the senior was totally clueless about this weapon's insane speed. He'd never dodge it in time. I know exactly what you're thinking. If the big guy goes down, our one-armed boy is entirely doomed too. Shifting his foot, Luca desperately scanned for a way to stop this. When the deadly spear launched toward the senior, Luca threw his remaining leg in its path, getting it ripped completely off. He just prayed the attack missed its real target. Now all he could do was wait. Still crushing the paladin's skull, the guard finally noticed the spear grazing right past his armor. Sneak attack failed, so the paladin grabbed the guard's own axe, pumping a ridiculous amount of force right into his hand. Reading the move, the guard instantly let go of his axe, balling his metal fist up for a brutal punch. While the paladin charged his energy, the guard threw an absolutely full-power haymaker, landing a devastating, mind-blowing punch straight to the knight's helmet. The crazy impact drove the paladin into the dirt, triggering a huge explosion. Surrounded by rubble, our boy Luca lay gasping now, missing both an arm and a leg. Way too weak to check the aftermath. Luca just wondered who actually survived that clash. Hearing footsteps approach, he prayed to heaven. It was his savior. Eyes shut tight, Luca suddenly heard a voice, praising him for a job well done. The voice confirmed the paladin was finally dead, all thanks to Luca's crazy sacrifice. It then calmly asked about abdomen injuries. Coughing, Luca explained he got slashed up trying to dodge the paladin's earlier force attack. Offering to carry him back to base, the guard stepped into view. But when Luca opened his eyes, pure, terrifying shock. This was the legendary Legion armor, a mechanical suit that literally ditches all unnecessary human parts for peak combat. It turns the wearer into an ultimate living weapon, every rookie's absolute dream. But as the guard offered his hand, Luca saw it. The guy literally had no head. Panicking, Luca wondered how he was still talking without a brain. Was this guy even human anymore, or just a programmed machine? In a creepy robotic voice, the totally clueless guard frantically patted around for his missing head, wondering where it went. Such absurd, terrifying logic. Finally, processing that his head was gone, the headless guard unleashed a chilling, desperate scream. Then boom, he collapsed to his knees, completely dead. Watching this nightmare unfold, Luca questioned if becoming this kind of monster was really his dream. So what do you and I take from this? Looking at his freezing body, Luca wonders if he'll even survive until help arrives. Stick with me, things are about to get crazy. Bleeding out next to a dead guard, Luca honestly thought this was game over. But suddenly a voice cuts through the haze. You alive? It is Lei. His buddy actually survived that insane paladin attack too. Luca immediately asks if anyone else made it. Nope. Lei drops the bad news. Everyone else is totally gone. Dropping next to the dead guard, the blonde asks how bad Luca's bleeding. Luca gives it to him straight. He is a goner. Not moving an inch, Luca asks what his buddy plans to do next, completely shocking Lei. He points out that Lei's ultimate dream life is sitting right there for the taking. Lei just stays totally silent. Staring at the horizon in a cold sweat, Luca tells him the Empire will never give him what he wants. Run to Kate or Batto. Still getting zero response, Luca warns him that once backup gets here, they are dragging them back to the Empire. So, he better run now. Panting and barely holding on, Lei finally forces himself up. Luca just watches his friend slowly drag himself toward the trees. Any Empire citizen would kill for Lei's fancy family. Thinking back to them stargazing, Luca admits he just does not get the guy. But whenever Lei talked about his real dreams, the dude's eyes completely lit up. So honestly, Luca hopes his bro finally lives free. Then he just peacefully shuts his eyes. Now watch this. Something presses on his missing arm. Luca snaps his eyes open. It is Lei. He asks what this absolute idiot is doing. Lei just smirks. He says Luca's dramatic little speech actually made him panic that his friend was going to die right there. Plus, his conscience would totally eat him alive if he just let his bro bleed out. Luca lets out a huge sigh. What an absolute moron. Right as the rescue ship lands. Fast forward a bit. Luca is super focused, completely absorbed in a comic about a spaceship invasion. Boom, Lei pops up out of nowhere, scaring him half to death, asking about new parts. Tapping the magazine, Lei totally nerds out over the F-24 model, claiming it adapts faster and beats Luca's current junk. Luca slams the magazine shut on the seat. He glares at his buddy to stop jump-scaring him. Lei instantly apologizes. Back home in the Empire, after getting patched up, the government suits interrogate Luca. They grill him about the 3 dead cadets and the guard. They are calling it the Karata Paladin encounter, though Luca thinks that is just a cover name. But honestly, they brought him in for something else entirely. Lei mentions that a weird artifact was found at the scene. You and I both remember that floating cube, right? Luca guesses it caused everything. Glancing at Lei, he asks who is collecting this crazy artifact. His buddy replies that they already sent in a squad of specialists. Looking super stressed, Lei explains that if the Alliance hoards the artifact and the crash site, an absolute bloodbath is starting. If the Empire fights the Karatas, those Balata guys win without even trying. Minor turf wars are already popping off, but Luca shuts him down fast. He could not care less about stupid politics. Just give him orders and let him smash things. Classic Imperial Guard mentality right there. He suddenly remembers a senior getting his head chopped off. His captain played it off as just a weird phantom glitch from residual energy. Luca is not buying that garbage. The captain was sweating bullets when making that excuse. Lost in thought, he knows his questions have zero answers. But he is not dumb enough to go poking the bear, especially when headquarters ignores everything. Meanwhile, right inside the gritty cadet camp, there is this ridiculously fancy visiting lounge. It is built for soldiers to meet family and friends. Luca literally never thought he would step foot here. He is just a broke orphan. Who on earth would visit him? He stares blankly at the gorgeous white-haired girl standing right in front of him. It is Lillian Ramon, the little sister of Claude. Why the heck is she here? Luca starts sweating. He was the squad leader when her brother died. She is definitely here to scream at him for Claude's brutal end. But Lillian tells him to chill. Her family honestly saw this coming the second Claude joined the Empire's military meat grinder. Taking a sip of coffee, she simply says she came to see him. Turns out Claude bragged about Luca all the time, calling him the absolute best cadet in camp. Her brother wanted them to meet. Luca asks if she cares that he's a broke orphan. She prefers it that way. Trust me, we need to see what happens next. Alright, stick with me here. Luca just realized that Lillian dropping all the boring, noble formalities means she actually likes him. She innocently asks if he dislikes the idea of getting closer. Luca, completely bewildered, just stares and asks, why, me, of all people? Lillian smiles, saying her brother's request is reason enough. Plus, she points out it would be a huge advantage for him anyway. Luca thinks about it and totally agrees. A commoner like him, marrying a high-ranking noble, that is a literal miracle. He remembers hustling his whole life, doing whatever it takes just to succeed. Marrying a noble would fast-track his goals, sure, but come on, this is way too easy. Naturally, his survival instincts scream that it's super suspicious, so straight up he rejects her offer. Lillian is totally blindsided. Getting up to leave, he bids the white-haired girl goodbye. He always thought Ellalie was an absolute idiot for trying to escape this empire. Yet here he is making a huge life choice based entirely on a bad gut feeling. Rejecting a noble like Lillian, oh, she will definitely take that as an insult. He just hopes this won't ruin his life. But suddenly Lillian steps right up and grabs his hand, completely catching him off guard. Blushing bright red and refusing to let go, she admits she rushed things. She shyly asks if they can just start off as friends instead. Still totally shocked, Luca stares at her and stammers that is not what he meant. Letting go of his hand, Lillian immediately sprints away, yelling that she will see him again soon. Luca just stares at his empty hand, deep in thought. You and I both know shaking her off will not be easy. Fast forward to the training hall. Luca is facing off against a ponytail guy named Quinuan, the absolute beast of a combat instructor for the Imperial Guard. Quinuan just laughs. He genuinely never expected a cadet to seek him out like this. Luca says he wants to learn. But Quinuan brushes him off, claiming Luca is already too talented, adding that barely any cadets are actually stronger than him right now. But Luca is not satisfied with just being the top cadet. Quinuan squints, warning the kid not to be so incredibly hasty. Quinuan is totally different from other instructors. He is insanely strong, but relies on cheap mechanical devices. Sure, Luca's mechanical parts are way better, but he completely lacks Quinuan's crazy skill set. Clenching his fist, Luca is actually grateful. He knows if he cannot even beat Quinuan, fighting a paladin would be an absolute joke. Letting out a long sigh, Quinuan mutters that he has no choice. He waves Luca forward. Luca rushes in fast, winding up to throw a massive punch. With zero effort, Quinuan casually deflects the strike, asking if Luca just wants to test his new parts. Preparing another attack, Luca figures this retired guard won't even feel a normal hit. so he goes all in, unleashing a relentless flurry of blows without stopping to breathe. Closing the gap, Luca leaps right at him, planning to end this entire spar with one absolutely devastating strike. Now watch this closely. Quinhuan just extends an arm and stares, doing absolutely nothing to dodge. Luca grabs his sleeve violently, yanking Quinhuan's arm down. He preps a devastating finisher, already celebrating the victory in his head. Completely expressionless, Quinhuan just watches the fist coming his way. A split second before impact, Quinhuan finally activates his glowing mechanical eye. Boom! Suddenly Luca is suspended upside down in midair, violently flipped like an absolute ragdoll. Utterly shocked, his brain short-circuits trying to process why he is flying. He quickly slams a hand down to catch his balance. Thinking that won't stop him, Luca fires off a wild upside-down kick aimed right at Quinhuan's face. But Quinhuan is ready. He casually snatches Luca's ankle mid-kick. In a flash, Luca is hurled across the room, sent flying backward. He bounces hard against the floor before skidding to a halt. Terrified, Luca stares at his master, wondering what on earth just happened. Walking over, Quinhuan bluntly points out that Luca totally misjudged his opponent's strength and got distracted right in the middle of combat. He stares coldly down at Luca, who is still lying there, completely bewildered. Quinhuan asks why he is rushing. Suddenly, it hits Luca from his angle that very first strike should have easily crushed Quinhuan's chin. But the exact second Quinhuan's hand brushed his arm, his entire body was completely paralyzed. He entirely lost control. The insane kinetic energy of his own punch was perfectly redirected back into him. Mind blown, Luca asks what that crazy move was. Quinhuan smirks, calling it his very own personal defense technique. Scrambling off the floor, Luca practically begs the guy can he learn that exact same technique. Looking at his own trembling hand, Quinhuan asks if the kid seriously wants to learn this after getting absolutely destroyed just now. So what do you and I take from this? Cutting corners has a price as blood drips from Quinhuan's hand. Wild things are coming next. Alright, you and I are back in the arena. The two are sitting down, and Quinhuan casually asks our boy what he actually learned from getting beat. Luca admits the harsh truth. He got totally baited and completely lost control. Quinhuan drops a bomb. That was RC combat. Luca is confused though, since isn't that literally how cheap street bandits fight? Still, Luca thinks the military should totally use it. But Quinhuan shuts that down fast. 3 massive problems. Is it just insanely hard to learn? Quinhuan smirks and praises him. Spot on. But the second issue, it absolutely fries your brain. Right again. As for the third catch, Quinhuan says he isn't ready for that yet. Luca boldly claims he will learn it eventually. Quinhuan stands up, reminding him it is not his call. Does this kid even know how much cash the military pumped into his training? Luca jumps up to defend himself, but the instructor cuts him right off. He demands an answer right now. Using that unhinged technique guarantees permanent brain damage. Can Luca swear to never ever use it? Staring at his mentor, Luca realizes something terrifying. If he lies right now, Quinhuan will instantly know. So he plays it honest. He cannot swear to it, but promises to try his absolute best to avoid it. That actually makes Quinhuan grin. He turns around, still smiling, and drops a heavy hand on his shoulder. He likes the honesty, leaving our boy totally stunned. Then boom, he sweeps Luca's legs right out. Watch this carefully. Before Luca even blinks, he hits the floor hard. Quinhuan walks away, telling him to literally always expect a sneak attack. Only with that paranoid mindset will he survive anything out there. Luca stares up, realizing what this means. Are you training me? Quinhuan glares right back. Get off the floor, he snaps. I like fast learners. Fast forward a bit and his buddy Ale is looking worried, asking if he even sleeps anymore. And honestly, Luca looks like a zombie. Massive dark circles, completely drained. Walking down the hall, he just brushes it off, claiming he is just a little busy. Busy is an understatement. It has been a whole month of training with Quinhuan and the guy has not taught him a single direct move. Instead, it is all DIY observation. Quinhuan told him, RC combat breaks all the rules, forcing you to push your natural limits to the absolute max. It is next level fighting. Using whatever you have to instantly create the deadliest, most efficient attack possible in mere seconds. Basically, it is a hardcore mental game. Changing the subject, Luca asks about Ale's recent deployment. His friend shrugs it off. Nothing crazy. Strolling down the hall, Ale admits everything has been a total breeze lately. Luca figures the enemy alliance is just laying low. He asks if that is exactly why their top commander has been totally missing in action. Ale nods, leaking some prime family gossip. Luca jokes about it. What do we need a full-blown rebellion just to get the boss out of bed? Ale goes dead serious and says yes. Luca freezes. His friend backpedals, saying he lacks the fine details, but a rebel faction is officially making moves. That pisses Luca off, starting a messy civil war while they are already fighting the alliance. Absolute idiot behavior. But Ale plays devil's advocate. If the Empire ignores its own deep corruption, they are just going to rot from the inside out anyway. I know what you're thinking. Escalation. Luca slams his buddy against the wall, ready to throw a massive punch. pure murder in his voice. He says he will ignore Alay, wanting to quit the military, but becoming a traitor, not happening. Panicking and gasping for air, Alay defends himself. He passed the loyalty tests too, he just thinks the Empire desperately needs a wake-up call. He begs him to chill. Luca finally lets go, warning him to drop the highly suspicious traitor talk. The last thing he wants is his buddy's name on a rebel hit list. Sweating but smiling, Alay tells him to relax, even offering to buy him food this weekend to make peace. But not even making eye contact, Luca coldly rejects him. He has plans. He literally tells him to stop talking because he is annoying. Still catching his breath, Alay teases him about a secret date with a girl, but Luca just orders him to get lost. Cut to the gritty lower sector of Acreia. Both Luca and Qinyuan are standing there soaking in some serious, unexpected nostalgia. Luca admits it. Once he put on that soldier uniform, he never planned to visit these dirty slums again. Qinyuan is practically glowing with excitement as two random guys brawl nearby. Luca honestly never expected his elite instructor to drag him here. This place is a dump where all the city's burning thermal waste gets flushed. Growing up, Luca choked on this exact toxic air every day. Back then, he knew the harsh reality. Escape this trash heap or stay a pathetic loser for the rest of his miserable life. Qinyuan snaps him out of his deep thoughts. Luca turns around to find his master waiting in a shady dark alleyway. Walking through the shadows, they pop out into a surprisingly crowded underground market area. Checking out the sketchy shops, Luca asks if this is the legendary black market. You know, the place where curious kids go and vanish forever. And that's where we leave it. Qinyuan smirks, and Luca realizes his elite teacher knows this illegal underworld way better than he does. Let's dive back in. Looking at his hands, Luca is seriously wondering why Qinyuan forced him to equip pure junk-tier cybernetics. Standing right in front of him, Qinyuan casually tells him to prep. Down the hall, two bulky guards block the main door. The second they get close, a guard barks at them to halt. Qinyuan just smiles, saying he needs a chat with the boss. Hearing this, the guard glares, asking if he even knows Alf, the big boss here. Qinyuan smoothly says no, he just wants to meet him. Instantly, the guard pulls his gun, aiming right at his head, calling him insane. Qinyuan still smiling like a maniac. Meanwhile, Luca instantly dashes in, sweeping the guard completely off his feet. Mid-air and totally confused, the guard looks up. He can barely process that this scrawny kid just dropped him. The second they crash down, the second guard spins around. But Luca is way too fast. He snatches the dropped weapon, aiming it right at the guy's face, warning him to freeze. Still grinning, Qinyuan asks the sweating guard if the situation is crystal clear now, casually ordering him to fetch Alf immediately. Totally defeated, both guards drop their heavy weapons straight to the floor. Luca stares at Qinyuan, asking what his grand plan was if he failed. Qinyuan just shrugs, claiming he'd simply find another way out. Glancing around the shady facility, Luca asks what this place actually is. Qinyuan beams, calling it the absolute hottest spot in the entire empire. Luca is just baffled. So Qinyuan finally drops the punchline. Welcome to the underground coliseum. Past the heavy doors, two more guards stand watch. Inside the private office, our duo sits directly across from three very intimidating guys. A huge guy in a sharp suit sits front and center, while two massive bodyguards stand right behind him. Staring down the mob, Boss Qinyuan casually points at his student, demanding he toss the kid straight into the arena. He even adds that it's totally fine if Luca dies out there. Suddenly, the junk equipment makes horrifying sense to Luca. The fat boss just quietly takes a long drag of smoke. Suddenly, the massive boss flicks his burning cigarette straight toward Qinyuan's face. In a flash, Luca snatches the cigarette right before it hits his master's chest. Qinyuan. He doesn't even blink. But wait. Both bodyguards now have their heavy guns aimed right at them. Now pay attention to this absolute power play. The boss claims he only invited them in to easily execute them. But Luca's brain is working fast. He knows it's a total bluff. Think about it. If this guy really wanted them dead, he would have let the guards handle it outside. Still, with 3 guns in their faces and more guards outside, the odds are awful. Calculating his first move, Luca launches a brutal kick. He launches the heavy table right at the boss, using it as a massive shield. The sudden chaos completely catches the armed bodyguards off guard. As the wood shatters into pieces, Luca charges in like a beast. He locks the fat boss in a tight chokehold, instantly disarming him. Gripping the stolen weapon, Luca locks onto the bodyguards. Bang, bang, 2 perfect headshots drop the massive threats in a split second. Hearing the deafening gunfire, the hallway guards aggressively kick the doors open to check the chaos. I know what you're thinking, what a crazy fight, but get this. That whole bloodbath, just a hyper-realistic combat simulation running inside Luca's mechanical eye. He hasn't moved an inch. Back in reality, Qinyuan calmly asks about the facility's previous owner. Alf smirks, asking if he means Tora. He brags that Tora got caught rigging the underground fights, and well, that was the end of him. Qinyuan smoothly calls it a brilliant power grab. Alf snitched on Tora to steal the Colosseum. It's just business, considering Tora literally did the exact same thing years ago. Losing his temper, Alf steps up. He jams his pistol against Qinyuan's head, furiously demanding how he knows so much. But the master's smile finally drops. With dead eyes, Qinyuan tells Alf to step back unless he really wants to join Tora in the cold ground. Hearing that Alf visibly trembles in pure fear, sweating bullets, he orders his men to stand down and heavily drops back into his chair. Nervously fixing his glasses, Alf asks if fighting is really all they want. Scanning the kid, Alf mocks Luca's fragile frame, claiming he has zero combat build and will be slaughtered in seconds. He agrees to the match but demands a massive payout. So Qinyuan casually offers the location of Tora's hidden vault, noting that Alf already looted the dead man's eyeball key. Terrified, Alf mentally panics, wondering who this smiling monster actually is to hold such perfect intel. The smile returns. Qinyuan just calls himself a lingering ghost from the past, telling the sweating boss to chill out. Defeated, Alf offers full VIP treatment. Qinyuan accepts, then drops one final insane request: put the boy against their absolute strongest champion. Staring at his mentor, Luca realizes he is miles away from this level. The guy just dominated an armed mafia standoff without lifting a single finger. Down in the Coliseum waiting room, Qinyuan just stares at a glowing tablet. He warns Luca the brutal match starts in 2 hours, ignoring that Luca only asks what is actually hidden inside that secret vault. That's where we leave it for now. Qinyuan just teases that the loot is life-changing, promising full details only after Luca actually wins. Flipping the screen, Qinyuan reveals the opponent. It is Gabriel, the legendary Iron Fist. Qinyuan gave it to him straight. These Coliseum fighters did not care about tomorrow. They would use literally anything to win, and one direct hit could instantly end Luca's life. Stick with me here, you and I are about to see him explain the absolute foundation of the art's combat method. Relaxing his grip, the master told the kid to just be satisfied. But Luca shot back in his world, being satisfied meant you were already losing. But his master just replied, water never breaks, it adapts. He admitted he had been watching the rookie since his very first exam. With that kind of raw potential, tracking him down was absolutely the right call. Luca completely called him out for buttering him up. Smiling, Qinyuan grabbed his shoulder and totally agreed. With a grin, Qinyuan mentioned this might be their final goodbye. Luca just smiled right back as blinding lights suddenly flooded the main arena. Stepping up, the announcer hyped the kid up as absolutely crazy for challenging Gabriel on his very first night. He completely roasted Luca, joking that he still drank from a baby bottle. He even called him Good Boy, a nickname the kid absolutely despised. Walking right through the angry crowd, heavy boos rained down. People kept screaming, asking who even let a weakling inside. Looking around, the fans were hyped to see him get completely crushed. Brushing off the hate, he walked forward, thinking about how twisted people really were. Entering the ring, he knew they genuinely wanted his blood. You probably think he was terrified right now, right? Honestly, he felt right at home. Dropping his hood, he decided to show these absolute losers his true power. Flashing back to his rough childhood, he remembered always being completely starved. Twice, every single month, an Imperial officer dropped off basic survival supplies, but the greedy owner always sold half of it. Starving was just normal life for those kids. Yet despite the hunger, Luca never stopped his brutal training. He devoured every single old dusty book he could find, constantly pushing his physical limits with massive weights made of solid stone. The other kids thought he was totally insane. They laughed, saying all that extra work would just make him even hungrier. Glaring right back at them, he flat out stated that if he got hungry, his raw strength would secure him more food. The strong absolutely crushed the weak. He knew that brutal rule by heart. The powerful got to eat and the weak were left to starve. Crying after getting beaten down, the other orphans told him he was just a pathetic kid like them. They begged him to stop acting so tough, because at the end of the day, he was just another trash-tier bottom feeder. Chewing his food and totally tuning them out, the boy realized he never had to listen to the annoying cries of weaklings. By age 12, his name officially landed on the Imperial Guard trainee prospect list. At 15, he was officially in. Those crying kids had absolutely no clue what his real life was like. He prayed he would never see those losers again. During his brutal trainee days, he completely blocked out the orphanage. He honestly believed he would never step foot in that dump again. Now, facing his massive opponent, the crowd was violently screaming Gabriel's name. Gabriel smirked, joking that management must be high to toss a kid in here. But hey, as long as he got paid, he really did not care. Sizing the huge guy up, Luca immediately noticed his body was completely asymmetrical and totally unbalanced. His cyborg parts were totally mismatched, and his real skin was constantly inflamed under that heavy armor. But even so, the guy was an absolute powerhouse. Every single modification was made just for raw destructive strength, the boy thought quietly. Towering over him, the giant teased that Luca was pretty cute, asking him to just be his personal servant for the night. With a cocky grin, the rookie fired back. Gabriel would definitely need a nurse because he was getting completely wrecked tonight. That completely set the giant off. Stomping back to his corner, the Iron Fist angrily promised to beat this kid until he was literally begging to be a servant. Now watch closely, the announcer grabbed his mic, screaming that this absolute world of pure carnage was officially kicking off. Up in the stands, Kinuan watched closely. With every single eye glued to the ring, Alf hyped up the incoming massacre. Clenching his fists hard, the boy realized the horrible truth. One single punch from that modded freak would instantly end his entire life. Suddenly, the giant charged in like a freight train, but the rookie cleanly dodged, sending that massive metal fist smashing right into the solid floor. The Iron Fist swung a second time, and once again he hit absolute air. Seeing an opening, he landed a gorgeous kick straight to the giant's head. But Gabriel just laughed it off, asking if that was supposed to tickle. Grinning wildly, the kid thought to himself, with his real armor on, that guy's head would have completely exploded. Backing up to gain some much-needed breathing room, he quickly realized that just running away was no longer an option. The cage was way too tight. The cyborg unleashed a flurry of lethal strikes. He dodged perfectly, but his own counterattacks were basically doing zero damage. Trust me, you and I know they want him dead. Alright, stick with me here. Everyone is screaming for Luca to get crushed, but he's just wondering what lesson Quinwan wants him to learn. Then it hit him. His instructor's rule was simple: fight with whatever you have, zero complaining allowed. Staring down Gabriel, Luca realized the old man took his heavy armor, but kept his eyes. Quinwan didn't just want a mindless brawl. He expected a smart win right as Gabriel rushed him again. Ares combat is all about maxing out your tools. Luca smirked, firing up his mechanical eye. Scanning the threat, he saw Gabriel's massive fists were basically shoulder-mounted cannons ready to blow, but they were sluggish compared to an actual blade. He tracked the brutal punch flying right at him clear as day. Up in the stands, Quinwan was genuinely stunned. A proud smirk hit his face. The kid is a genius. Thinking back to the exams, he realized Luca already understood Ares combat purely on instinct. Quinwan silently hyped him up. Down below, Luca casually dodged every single swing, stepping right into Gabriel's space. Now pay attention here. The crowd is screaming for Iron Fist to murder this kid, but Gabriel is officially sweating bullets. Luca was totally zoned in. Every single move Gabriel tried to make read like a book. Could he pull off his master's trick? He decided to try slapping his hand onto Gabriel's metal arm. With crazy speed, Luca kicked out his knee. Gabriel completely lost his balance and caught air. While still flying, the big guy took a brutal heel to the face. Luca was buzzing, practically laughing out loud. He finally understood what the old man saw. Dusting himself off, Gabriel somehow forced himself back up. Veins popping, absolutely furious, the brute screamed about whatever black magic Luca was using. He charged back and screaming that cute tricks wouldn't save the kid twice, winding up another massive punch. The impact literally exploded the arena, but with a totally psychotic smile, Luca just sidestepped. The shockwave barely grazed him before obliterating the wall. Seizing his window, Luca slid right up close. Did he honestly think brute force was everything Luca mocked him? If you lack raw muscle, it's simple. You just cheat with something better. Launching himself off the cracked floor, he shot upward. He flipped backward, hooking his legs into a brutal chokehold. Trapped instantly, Gabriel's face went completely rigid, zero time to even block. You and I both felt that one, right? A violent twist, a loud snap, and it's over. As the heavy cyborg dropped fast, Luca stuck a perfect, unharmed landing. The entire crowd was frozen. He glared up, told them they could wait for his funeral forever, but he was climbing to the very top. Behind him, Gabriel was out cold. Yanking his hood up, Luca chilled out. He realized that hyperfocus only worked because the arena gave him perfectly predictable boundaries. Leaving the dead-silent stadium, Luca dragged his feet. Okay, maybe Quinwan actually knew what he was doing. Waiting outside, his master stood with arms crossed, nodding with approval. He officially welcomed the kid to Ares combat. Luca admitted the lesson hit home. Then Quinwan held out his hand, offering him a little reward. Luca snatched it, a solid credit chip. He raised an eyebrow, asking if this was his prize money. Not a chance. Quinwan said it was to fix Gabriel's neck. Generosity is cool, but playing the fool gets you killed. Luca scoffed, wanting to be a killer, not a nurse. But the old man called him completely blind to networking. Getting serious, Quinwan explained, this wasn't pity. It was a cold hard investment that would pay off massively later. He'd already dropped cash on Tora today. Building up the people around you is how a real soldier survives the longest. Watching his master leave, it suddenly clicked. Quinwan was heavily investing in him right now too. And someday soon, the old man would demand a favor that Luca literally could not refuse. Cut to the clinic. Gabriel was miserable. A doctor tapped a screen explaining his old cyborg mods were trashed. He needed the top-tier psionic gear. Gabriel completely snapped, screaming he was completely broke. He raged, asking if this was a scam. Everyone else in the slums used cheap junk metal bodies. The doc didn't flinch. He reminded Gabriel that normal guys don't install crazy military-grade upgrades. Meanwhile, tucked in the shadows, Luca was secretly listening to the whole meltdown. So where does that leave us? Without Luca paying up, this guy is doomed. Ranting at the ceiling, Gabriel cursed about how expensive his broken gear was, totally missing his stalker. Alright, stick with me here. Luca casually drops by, smiling and acting happy to see Gabriel awake. But Gabriel, his eyes are literally burning with pure rage. Staring right at his worst nightmare, Gabriel screams that he will absolutely destroy him someday. Luca steps closer, dead serious. He quietly reminds the guy that he already promised to break him during their last fight. Then reality hits. Luca remembers his instructor telling him to chill out. Backing off, he walks straight to the doctor, asking about that fancy Zionic model mentioned earlier. Flashing the digital credits on his chip, he asks if this cash covers it. The doctor nods, yes. Gabriel is totally lost right now, demanding to know what Luca is doing. Luca just casually says he is covering all the medical bills. Gabriel is completely baffled. Why? Luca shrugs and says, he just felt like it. Smirking, Gabriel mutters that the nickname Good Boy fits him perfectly. Swallowing his massive pride, Gabriel realizes this is the ultimate flex winner's mercy. He asks for his real name, and Luca finally gives it to him. Staring him down, Gabriel promises that if Luca ever needs a favor, just say the word. He hates being in debt, but honestly, Luca is kind of loving the power trip. Now watch this transition. Back at the AK training arena, two guys are squaring off inside the ring. Ally wastes zero time rushing in with a crazy high kick to the head. Luca blocks it with one bare hand, looking completely bored. Just relaxing his grip, Luca uses dirty street combat to spin Ally and completely toss him. Once practice wraps up, Ally looks absolutely crushed by that brutal session. Slumping down next to him, Ally asks if instructor Kinyuan taught him those street moves. Luca nods yes. Looking super confused, Ally mentions that only thugs use that fighting style. Luca laughs and agrees, wild as it sounds. Ally sighs, admitting he cannot even imagine winning anymore. But Luca actually praises him, calling him the only trainee worth fighting. Realizing that the underground coliseum leveled him up, Luca smiles. Ally notices his good mood and immediately asks for a huge personal favor. Surprisingly, Luca actually says yes. Cut to the Acreia Empire visiting room. Luca looks absolutely ready to snap. Meanwhile, Ally is sweating bullets, completely looking away. And right beside Luca sits Lillian, her intense red eyes practically burning holes into his face. Twitching with rage, Luca calls Ally out. Panicking, Ally apologizes, swearing their families are close and he literally could not say no. Lillian completely ignores the tension, pointing out she signed up to visit multiple times. She demands to know why he is dodging her. Luca hits her with the cold, hard truth he is not interested, hoping the ghosting would send a clear message. I know what you are thinking, so harsh, right? Ally begs him to be nicer, but Luca just tells him to shut his mouth. Staring right into his eyes, Lillian asks why he hates her so much. Luca flatly says he has zero time for women, just his main mission. Lillian tilts her head, asking if dating her would not actually help him. But Luca fires back, saying she does not get it. Relying on a powerful noble means he could lose his entire life in one single second. That is a risk he refuses to take. As Ally stares at the floor sweating, Lillian points out the giant loophole: he is best friends with Ally, another noble. Luca immediately shuts that down. Ally is his actual friend, and it has absolutely nothing to do with family status. Lillian finally asks if he seriously will not give her a single chance. Downing the rest of his drink, Luca stands up. Nope, zero chances, and he bluntly tells her to never visit him again. Luca storms out, looking annoyed, leaving Lillian and Ally sitting in awkward, dead silence. Catching up in the hallway, Ally calls out to him. Running over, Ally mutters that he did not have to be that savage. Luca argues that being cruel is the only way she stops. Ally still wants to know why the intense hate. Luca admits her crush makes zero sense, so he is fully convinced she is plotting some crazy scheme. But Ally argues it is stupid to be paranoid over nothing, hinting they could just take things a lot slower. Luca cuts him off instantly. Does Ally like her? Complete silence. Blushing hard, Ally stammers, asking where he even got that crazy idea. Luca smirks. He heard his panicked breathing the whole time. Glaring right at him, Luca makes it clear he has zero interest. He tells Ally to step up and make his own move if he likes her. Sweating, Ally just stays completely quiet, totally thrown off. Looking away in pain, Ally stares back at the table, secretly thinking there is absolutely no way he could ever pull that off. Cut to an insane magma pit right inside the city. Two figures are chilling on a massive pillar near the boiling edge. It is Luca, deep in meditation, telling himself to stay perfectly calm under pressure, and sitting right beside him is his crazy instructor Kinyuan. Luca asks how Kinyuan would have handled that deadly office ambush. Thinking back, Luca literally sees no way to survive that room unarmed and alive. Waiting for some legendary master advice, Luca is stunned when Kinyuan casually says he would have just hidden under the desk immediately. You and I know that is wild. Luca argues they had guns, so hiding just wastes the chance to attack. Stick with me here. Kinyuan completely predicted that Luca would attack at the very first chance. Luca wonders what the old man would do alone. The instructor smirks. He knew Luca's plan because the kid was literally trained for maximum aggression. But here is the kicker, taking that fat boss hostage would have just gotten Luca shot too. Gangs replace dead bosses all the time. But before that, Quinwan planned to wipe them out completely and drag Luca through a secret escape route. Staring at his teacher, Luca is mind blown. Quinwan predicted his every move and even had a flawless getaway planned. Luca just cannot comprehend this guy. Quinwan explains that RC combat uses the entire brain. Hearing that, it suddenly clicks for Luca. Constant limit pushing is exactly what causes massive brain damage. Taking a second to think, Luca asks the big question, does using the Legion block RC combat entirely? The instructor nods, yes. Quinwan explains that becoming a guard means getting a Legion. That tech eats up all your memory signals and brain resources, meaning zero brain power left for RC techniques. Feeling totally let down, Luca realizes his teacher hid this just to avoid a tantrum. If he knew earlier, he would have skipped training completely. Watching Luca leave, Quinwan wonders if it's over. Luca says a quick thanks for everything. Quinwan just watches him, adding that the door is always open if he changes his mind. Still super tense, Luca leaves in dead silence. Later, he stands frozen inside an Empire room. Watch closely now because 3 months just flew by. Castoria finally shows up, making excuses about being way too busy to meet his trainees. The commander checks in on Luca. Our boy assumes he's getting drafted to crush the recent rebellions. Luca casually mentions he's just training alone. Castoria drops a bomb. Luca is benched from missions. Why? Because he's already way too strong. Luca respectfully thanks the commander. Then Castoria casually asks about his recent training with Quinwan. Instantly, Luca gets suspicious. Is this the real reason he got summoned? Luca realizes the Empire definitely tracked his secret trips to the slums, the shady black market deals, and those wild Colosseum fights. Castoria directly asks about the RC combat training. Playing it cool, Luca simply replies that he quit doing that entirely. Castoria totally agrees. Since RC combat clashes with the Legion tech, it's basically useless garbage for any Empire soldier anyway. He nods, totally understanding Luca on this. Quinwan tosses out the untalented, and the geniuses just see zero reason to even bother, making Quinwan the sole RC user left. Staring back, Luca asks if Castoria actually wants him to continue learning. Castoria says yes, just to keep on Quinwan's good side. Luca needs to stick with the training program, and he makes it a strict official order. Shocked, Luca wonders why the commander fears a retired old guy but smartly stays quiet. Luca simply agrees to follow the orders. Castoria gives a creepy warning he's always watching, but he admits Luca has that main character energy to reach the absolute top. You and I didn't see this coming. Holding a toy helmet, Quinwan admits he never expected Luca back so fast. He reminds Luca the door was always open, promising he won't ask any annoying questions about it. Luca says thanks. Honestly, he fully expected begging the old man to teach him again would be way harder. Luca asks why they're hanging out here. Quinwan just ignores him, asking if kids still like these toys. Flexing hard, Quinwan turns to the owner and literally buys out the entire store, demanding immediate delivery. The owner is absolutely stunned. Meanwhile, Luca stands there completely confused, wondering why his master needs toys. Pulling up to the drop spot, it clicks. Luca asks if it's an orphanage. Quinwan just tells him to drop the heavy boxes and chill. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out. Gabriel is standing right there, looking totally annoyed, hauling heavy boxes. He angrily asks Luca if he looks like some cheap baggage handler. Luca smirks, remembering Gabriel offered to help back at the hospital. Plus, this is way easier since the shop refused delivery. Gabriel snaps back that he meant helping with epic fights, not chores. Smiling, Luca drops a roast. He doesn't need backup for fights. Staring at the bald giant, Luca notices that fancy new spine implant actually gave Gabriel way better physical balance. Glancing over at Quinwan by the front door, Gabriel curiously asks who the old guy even is. He figures if the man is so legendary that even the Alf couldn't handle him, Luca must know his deal. Luca gives a chilling warning. If he wants to keep his head attached, he really shouldn't stick his nose into this. That's where we leave it. Luca finally realizes this is the exact orphanage where the terrifying Quinwan actually grew up. Stick with me here because things get wild. Quinwan is doing charity work when several orphanage kids run right toward our two guys. Luca and Gabriel hand out the gifts while the kids cheer. But classic Gabriel starts complaining they're super rude, mostly because one little brat straight up called him ugly. And of course, two of the little gremlins immediately start throwing hands over a single gift box. Watching this, Luca gets hit with childhood flashbacks. Life was never fair back then. He realizes pretty quickly you need absolute strength to grab what you want. While Luca is deep in his edgy thoughts, someone sneaks up behind him, calling his name. He turns around. It's Quinwan asking for a private chat. Leaning casually against the fence, the guy mentions he actually visits this rundown lower sector every now and then. He praises the director, saying they're pulling off a miracle, considering they get basically zero funding to keep this chaotic orphanage running. Super curious now, Luca asks if Qinyuan actually grew up here. Qinyuan brushes it off, claims he forgot all that boring stuff and just dropped by totally randomly. He even adds with a smirk that maybe he visited the exact orphanage Luca grew up in. Luca stares hard. He thinks the guy just looks like your average washed-up veteran, stripped of his past glory, rocking a totally damaged nervous system thanks to some massive brain injury. Luca seriously wonders if that depressing image is his own future. But Qinyuan completely cuts the vibe, telling him to get straight to business. Suddenly, dropping the nice guy act, he threatens Luca. Who exactly ordered him to come crawling back here? Now watch this part closely. Combat eye fully glowing, Qinyuan turns and asks if Commander Castoria sent him. Luca is absolutely frozen in pure shock. Staring at his instructor, he finally snaps out of it, locks eyes with Qinyuan, and demands to know what the heck he means. How does this guy know the chief's secret orders? Is he hiding something incredibly dangerous? Is Castoria terrified? Luca gets ready to throw down. He realizes if the guy is a massive threat, he might literally have to take Qinyuan out right here. But Qinyuan just stares right through him. He tells Luca to chill out if he values his life. He flat out warns that if Luca goes all out, holding back would be impossible. He'd end up accidentally sending our boy straight to the afterlife. Sweating bullets, Luca stubbornly declares he is just a loyal soldier of the Empire. That's his only answer. Qinyuan just sighs. He says Luca is so clueless he doesn't even know his own path. Placing a heavy hand on his shoulder, Qinyuan says no judgment here. After all, blind obedience to the top brass is just classic soldier behavior. Then he drops a bombshell. Did Luca really think coming to him that first time was his own free choice? When Luca bended that bullet trajectory without a combat eye, the big bosses had already started pulling strings. They finally found a kid who could learn RC just like Qinyuan. Luca's supposed free will, a total illusion. I know what you're thinking, but Luca doesn't want to believe the Empire played him. He desperately wants his choices to be real, so he angrily yells that it was his own decision. But Qinyuan just drops cold facts: everyone is a slave to somebody, aware or not. Staring him down, Qinyuan figures the kid just wants to run away from this ugly truth. After all, he's still super young. Walking away, Qinyuan tells him to come back soon and even says, "Go ahead, snitch to the commander about all this." Deep in thought, Luca tells himself the guy is lying, but honestly the chief really did want him mastering RC. Brain completely frying, Luca tries hard to block out his teacher's words. Doubting the mighty Empire is seriously bad news, but what if his burning ambition wasn't even his to begin with? Jump cut to later. Inside the Empire's high-tech simulation room, a fully armored Luca is brooding on a bench in the corner. Staring at the floor, he's super annoyed. He completely failed to report back to the commander yesterday. If he had spilled the beans, they'd force a mental check, and with his brain this messy, his score would totally tank. Plus, the Empire absolutely hates dangerous ideas. They'd instantly boot him from the Imperial Guard and ship him off to some awful camp. Thinking back, Luca realizes something insane. That sneaky old man Qinyuan totally knew he'd be too terrified to actually snitch to the chief. Suddenly, the doors hiss open, blasting smoke everywhere. Out walks Eli, looking like he just survived an absolute nightmare. Panting heavily, Eli easily catches a water bottle flying at his face. Luca threw it, joking that his friend is hitting totally different levels lately. Eli smirks, admitting he's been grinding like crazy ever since Luca beat him. The blonde asks if Luca just came down to play cheerleader, pretending to be touched. But Luca deadpans that obviously he needs a massive favor. Luca brings up an old rumor Eli mentioned: rich families buying exam results. Eli immediately gets serious, calling it highly classified intel. Staring him down, Luca asks straight up, "How did you pass the psychological test?" Eli freezes, warning him that asking that is borderline suicidal. Sitting back, Luca smirks and says he already made sure the room is completely empty. Eli sighs. He won't ask why, but here's the trick. You build a fake ego for the test, burying your real self. And that's where we leave it. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. Meanwhile, our main character Luca had questions. Ile explained that intense trauma could actually make people lose their memories or totally flip personalities. Stick with me here. What if he faked it? Luca wondered if playing the perfect loyal soldier could actually overwrite his brain and create a brand new ego. Turns out that is exactly what Ile did 2 months before testing. The catch: keep the act up for too long and you completely forget your true self. Luca asked where he learned this trick secretly, realizing he just needed to act like his weak old self from before he ever met Qinyuan and Ile. Ile gave him a look. He didn't know what Luca was plotting, but warned him to be super careful. Messing with a psych test is no joke. Luca joked that he never expected warnings from the blonde guy. Suddenly, his combat eye activated, completely startling him. It was Qinyuan trying to reach him. Soon, they met up in the lower sectors, right outside a shady building. Staring at it, Qinyuan casually announced today was just a simple training exercise. The instructor admired the structure, calling it a perfectly built local gang hideout. Luca felt uneasy. Qinyuan was acting totally normal, pretending the crazy orphanage incident never even happened, which seriously bugged our boy. Standing at a locked door, Kinuan gave him a 20-second timer. The mission: go in and completely wipe out every single gangster inside. Now watch this entrance, Luca agreed, placed his hand flat against the heavy lock and blasted the door wide open. Inside, a bunch of gangsters were just chilling out. Hearing the massive explosion, one thug quickly jumped up. But Luca was already in the room, walking straight toward the stunned guy. Face to face, the thug demanded to know what he wanted, sneering that he didn't look like a customer. Calm as ever, Luca noticed another guy charging with a weapon. Scanning the room, he counted 3 armed enemies ready to attack. One clearly looked like the boss, plus another person hiding out in the bathroom. Aiming his gun right at Luca's head, the thug smirked, calling it bad luck to shoot a kid. But mid-sentence, bam, he took a massive punch to the stomach and got launched straight into the ceiling before he even blinked. The remaining 3 gangsters just stared at their buddy plastered to the roof, completely speechless. Fists clenched tightly, Luca casually muttered that his head had been messy lately, so he needed to blow off some steam. The knocked-out thug up high finally dropped his weapon. While his friends kept gaping at the ceiling in shock, the gun plummeted down. Snapping out of it, they aimed to shoot, but Luca just reached out and caught the falling gun. Weapon secured, he pointed it instantly and fired, shooting each guy perfectly in the arm to disarm them. Across the room, the furious gang boss aimed his gun, unloading multiple shots at Luca while screaming pure insults. Sidestepping every single bullet effortlessly, Luca mocked the guy, amazed someone with such garbage aim could lead a gang. Then he aimed his gun straight at the bathroom door. You and I both know the timing here is comedy gold. Out steps a thug, pants totally down, holding a taser. Taking in the absolute chaos in the room, the half-naked guy dumbly asked what was happening. Keeping his aim steady, Luca ordered him to tase himself unless he wanted to lose his limbs. Staring blankly at his own shock device, the thug seriously debated his life choices. A second later, bright light and electric sparks lit up the room. Standing over the twitching thug, Luca frowned. He could definitely still feel someone else hiding inside that bathroom. Stepping inside, he found a naked woman shivering on the floor. Instantly, the joke was over. Luca's face went dark with pure rage. Swearing at the garbage thugs, he noticed she was heavily bound with thick ropes. Back outside, Kinuan casually checked the time, noting it only took Luca 12 seconds to clear everyone. He clapped, praising the kid, while Luca carried the rescued girl out using his own shirt for cover. Furious, Luca demanded to know why they couldn't just execute the trash. Kinuan refused. Killing outsiders would draw way too much heat. Kinuan then dropped some reality. The world is full of victims too weak to fight back. She suffered because she lacked strength. Luca was forced to become powerful for one reason, so he would never end up as prey. Normally cynical, Luca would call victims idiots. But right now, all he felt was utter disgust for the abusers. From that day on, Kinuan kept dragging him down to the slums, tossing him into random brawls completely blind. It wasn't about teaching him how to win, but forcing his brain to instantly adapt and analyze any insane battlefield. And that's where we leave it. Even after countless fights, his instructor never explained a single thing. Come along with me. Down in a lower sector repair shop, a red-haired girl wearing glasses and a blue jumpsuit greets them. Kinuan calls her Gilda, ordering a black coffee completely topped with oil. Classic mechanic diet. Luca plays it safe, asking for the same but oil-free. Luca glances around, asking if they seriously needed to stop here. Instructor Kinuan teases him. Doesn't Luca feel proud visiting the exact same woman he just saved from a brutal gang? See, she got kidnapped and went through absolute hell. But amazingly, her mind stayed completely sharp, and she bounced right back to normal life. Why was she kidnapped? Kinuan bluntly explains. It was because of a friend. Turns out Gilda grew up in an orphanage as a child engineering genius. So Kinuan secretly funded all her studies totally anonymously. She has zero clue. Luca asks if Kinuan actually knew Gilda from the very start. Suddenly, someone walks into the shop letting out a surprised shout. Still sitting, Kinuan and Luca look up to see Gabriel. Spotting Luca, he demands to know why he is here, then orders a beer. Gilda shuts that down immediately. She tells him to quit drinking since his body is exhausted. Funny story. After the rescue, Kinuan introduced her to Gabriel. He became her muscle, and she became his personal mechanic. Looking up at the giant dude, Luca smirks. You should definitely listen to your mechanic. The bodyguard gets defensive, swearing it is just one drink. Then the bald instructor changes the subject, asking what Luca was thinking, provoking all those thugs. Those gang leaders are already plotting payback. Kinuan warns that if they attack, even he would not be able to keep Gilda safe. But then he tells them to relax. The gang will not show up here anytime soon. A worried Gilda asks for a timeline. Kinuan shrugs. Could be months. Maybe even years. Luca realizes he cannot visit the lower sectors alone anymore. His strict superiors would never allow it. Looking over at Gilda and his instructor, Luca gets this sinking feeling. This might be goodbye. Despite everything, Gilda went back to the daily grind, while Gabriel keeps taking crazy risks. But Luca tells himself to snap out of it. No pity. Sipping his coffee, he figures never coming back to this shop might actually be better for his current situation. Cut back to the Empire behind closed doors. Luca finishes his mission report and Chief Castoria sighs, remarking that Kinuan keeps pulling these weird stunts. Castoria points out that Luca joined the trainees super late, normally impossible, but right now the Empire is totally desperate for his kind of talent. Now, pay attention here. Even Commander Castoria has absolutely no clue who Kinuan really is. Back when Castoria was just a total rookie, Kinuan was already leading the elite Imperial Guard. The chief assumes Kinuan is a top-tier Black Ops specialist. Luca is totally stunned. Plus, it seems like the grumpy instructor actually favors him. Out of every single trainee Kinuan ever took in, Luca is the only one still standing. Castoria praises Luca's insane skills, but worries about his mental state, ordering a mandatory psych evaluation. Nodding, Luca totally saw that coming from a mile away. Rubbing his face, Castoria drops the corporate act, stating there are only two paths for trainees handling these missions. Either they get permanently silenced to protect secrets, or they ascend straight into the Imperial Guard as a massive reward for their loyalty. Castoria hopes Luca gets the promotion, but Luca plays it cool, saying he just follows orders. If this crazy operation actually succeeds, Luca hopes the commander will definitely have his back. Smiling, Big Castoria drops an absolute bomb. If Luca scores high enough, he will literally adopt him as his own son. Luca Castoria has a nice ring to it, the chief laughs. Luca just stands there completely frozen, wondering if he is joking. I know what you are thinking. Did Chief Centurion Castoria seriously just offer to adopt him? Still completely mind-blown about the adoption, Luca lines up for his psych test. The robotic examiner formally announces the exam is starting. The machine scans his face, detecting extreme happiness. It literally asks if he received some really good news. Laughing out loud, Luca tells the tin can to mind its own business and just start the test already. Meanwhile, over at the gym, someone is absolutely destroying a punching bag. Ile throws massive combos, rocking it side to side. He finishes the combo with a brutal kick. Sweat flies everywhere. Winding up for one last insane punch, Ile sends the entire bag flying across the room. Gasping for air, the madman finally finishes his hardcore training. He grabs a small container of weird green oil. Wincing hard, Ile rubs the strange liquid straight into his aching elbow joints. Sitting right next to him, Luca points out that he trained until his joints gave out. He seriously wonders if this is the same old Ile. Flashing a smirk, Luca casually asks if his buddy actually passed the psych exam. Ile confirms, promising backup. And trust me, you and I definitely want to see what is next. Alright, you and I are about to dive into some serious military drama. Ilya nervously admitted he could not share the details yet, but would soon ask Luca a massive favor. Luca just stared back, studying his friend. Luca smoothly responded that if things went bad in combat, he would save Ilya, even if it meant totally risking his own life. Relieved, Ilya thanked him. He promised to explain everything soon, though he really hoped it would not end up as bloody as Luca thought. Honestly, Luca would be totally lying if he said he was not curious. But he backed off, letting things play out naturally. After all, he had just crushed the psychological exam and completely won the trust of the chief. Right now, Luca had one massive goal: becoming an official member of the powerful Castoria family. It was literally the only thing on his mind. Meanwhile, the top commander suddenly announced a brand new special military order. The mission: crush the rebels. The squad included 3 major families led by the Ramones. Hearing the Ramon name drop, Luca flinched and immediately checked Ilya. Thinking about Lily, and Luca suddenly figured out exactly what that favor was. Soon after, dozens of soldiers packed into an armored train that blasted off instantly. Stepping up, Luca introduced himself as the leader of the 21st Army Suppression Battalion. His new subordinates immediately saluted him. Luca figured it out fast. The higher-ups were using raw trainees as platoon leaders, treating this whole live operation like a simple training drill. His own platoon had 27 guys split into 2 groups. Mostly hardened veterans, with Sergeant Kodra acting as his direct assistant. These older soldiers fully knew they were just practice tools for some rookie kids. Obviously, they hated taking orders from a teenager. But Luca knew he had to assert dominance right away. He weighed 2 totally different options. Now, watch carefully. Here is where he proves himself. Option 1 was letting Kodra lead. Instead, Kodra jumped as Luca threateningly declared his absolute superiority over everyone. He demanded strict obedience. Any hint of rebellion would be brutally punished. Going full tyrant mode, Luca used sheer intimidation to crush their distrust, while every single veteran glared at him in pure shock. Not backing down, the veteran sergeant grabbed Luca by the shoulder, leaning in to ask if they could talk privately for a second. Big mistake. Luca instantly snatched the arm of the sergeant and literally chucked him backward into his own squad. Furious, Luca screamed at him for daring to touch a superior officer. Was he treating this like a joke just because Luca was young? Stepping closer, Luca coldly admitted he was also a street rat from an orphanage. But did they know the massive difference between him and them? Standing over the fallen sergeant, Luca stared down and confidently declared that his raw talent made him vastly superior to every single one. They probably thought he was crazy right now, but they would learn fast. He was the most insane platoon leader they would ever have. The tough sergeant, still stuck on the floor, just listened in dead silence. Slowly standing up, Kodra completely submitted, admitting his mistake and promising to behave. Satisfied, Luca finally turned his back. Luca smirked, knowing the veteran respected his tough attitude. He definitely did not pick the easy path today. Meanwhile, over at the main rebel stronghold, a massive triangular ship floated into view. Inside, the entire suppression platoon stood ready for war. Facepalming in pure disbelief, Ilya let out a huge sigh after hearing his buddy basically assaulted a veteran member of his own squad. Luca just shrugged it off, explaining that playing nice gets zero respect from hardcore soldiers. To them, he was just a child. Suddenly, the room went dark, totally startling the entire crew. A stern guy on the main stage grabbed the mic and completely skipped the boring formalities. The commander revealed the rebels had hijacked an ancient arcane outpost, running their entire operation underground. You and I both know this screams trap, right? 2 heavy walls, a massive energy dome, and 5 insane anti-aircraft towers guarded the base. The heavily armored 11th Brigade got the suicide mission to bust those towers, while the rest of the army hit the sides hard. The Empire was absolutely not holding back today. The commander set the clock 90 minutes until the chaos kicks off, ordering everyone to gear up immediately. Moments later, Ilya and Luca were standing outside their transport. Knowing their assignment, Ilya joked that being simple backup support felt basically like a boring picnic. Luca seriously explained that the Empire simply needed them alive. After processing that cold fact, Ilya stared right back at his friend. Before Ilya could even open his mouth, Luca snapped and asked if he was seriously thinking about the Ramon family right now. Luca brutally reminded him that their friendship did not matter here. If Ilya sided with the enemy rebels, not even his rich family could save him from execution. Desperate, Ilya admitted he was not praying for miracles, but if there was even a tiny fraction of a chance, he needed to save Lillian. Absolutely furious, Luca demanded to know if he seriously loved her enough to throw his life away. Ilya quietly confessed Lillian was his first real love. Groaning, Luca told him to wake up, shouting that he had ignored the warning signs until now. But this crossed the line. Honestly, you and I both know the brutal truth: trying to save Lillian means certain death. Alright, stick with me, we are diving into some serious backstabbing. Turning away, Luca gives Ella a final warning. With a totally serious face, Ella nods. He instantly pivots in the complete opposite direction and walks away. But honestly, Ella knows that is a total lie. He knows his friend Luca is planning to save Lillian at absolutely any cost. It literally doesn't matter what Ella thinks. For everyone's sake, Lillian needs to be totally destroyed. His one desperate wish that Lillian just bites the dust in the upcoming chaos before she ever crosses paths with him again. Staring hard at his battle helmet, Luca reminds himself to protect the head and the chest. Keep those safe and you survive. Suddenly, the Sergeant Kodra approaches the squad leader. Luca asks what's up. Kodra admits he checked with the higher-ups and fully knows what a beast Luca is. Luca literally goes, so what Kodra casually requests that during combat Luca actually needs to follow his orders. Since the surgeon has served the Empire for 10 straight years, Luca tells him to chill. He promises to listen to anyone making sense. Kodra agrees, and then the ship lands. They finally reach the rebel base. The massive doors drop, revealing the armored brigade disembarking. This is the legendary Myrmidon Brigade, suited up in full mechanical armor to obliterate the towers. The other squads have to wait. The fire order drops and the entire armored brigade fires up their thrusters. They blast forward together, moving so insanely fast, they leave a blazing trail of fire across the sky. Holding tight formation, they dive straight toward the rebel base's anti-aircraft towers. Watch closely. The giant towers suddenly begin charging massive energy for a devastating strike. Opening his chest plate, one totally crazy soldier unleashes an absolute rain of missiles at a tower. The tower fires a massive energy beam right back, but the soldiers easily dodge it. Following that attack, the squad blasts the barrier with another explosive strike, dumping more missiles at its base. A giant explosion goes off, but the barrier somehow survives. Wait, 2 glowing red eyes pierce the dust. It's one hardcore soldier still relentlessly pushing toward the tower. The tower fires again and completely misses. Getting right up in its face, the armored soldier locks in and prepares for a full power strike. Gripping his spear, he delivers an absolutely devastating blow to the barrier. The impact actually cracks it. Meanwhile, the rest of the squad keeps spamming missiles to weaken it. Finally, the huge barrier completely shatters under the brigade's raw power. Watching from the ship, Luca is honestly stunned by how incredibly fast they crush that shield. The mission neutralized those towers in under 1 minute of entry. Failing that means dealing with a huge tactical disadvantage. If the armored brigade messes up the standard, infantry forces are going to have to do the dirty work themselves. Then the comms go off. Towers neutralize, time to advance to the next operation stage. You and I know battlefields are scary, but Luca, He absolutely loves the wild adrenaline rush here. Without that sick rush of danger, he would have lost his mind years ago. Walking to the exit, Luca orders his battalion to follow. It's the perfect time to flex his skills. The plan is simple. Infantry swarms from every direction so nobody escapes. But these underground tunnels, a total nightmare maze. They brought an old map, but those sneaky rebels completely modified the tunnel layouts. Surrounded by war and explosions, they push forward. One guy notes the rebels definitely blocked entrances to keep the giant mechs out. Reaching the entrance, the soldiers hold formation, staying super on edge. Stepping up, Luca loudly declares he will take point. Kodra immediately talks back, warning that a place like this is a massive trap hazard. Luca grins and asks if the sergeant is scared of the paperwork if he dies. Kodra deadpans, yes. Before Kodra can even finish, Luca just slams his helmet shut. He literally does not care anymore. Moving extremely fast, Luca repeats that he is leading and barks at them to follow. A sudden chill hits his spine, like his own men might actually stab him in the back. But whatever, no time for paranoia. Thinking about the target, Luca knows he absolutely has to eliminate Lillian before Eri shows up. His buddy Eri is probably advancing fast through the tunnels too. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. He could easily win by using his men as meat shields, but he refuses to lose loyal soldiers. Instead, he takes every single risk himself. That's his mindset right as a ceiling trap triggers above him. Kodra screams Luca's name. In an absolute blur, Luca draws his sword and cleanly slices the trap's pipe that he accidentally set off. Using the arc method, his senses are dialed up to maximum. We're talking crazy stuff. Even tasting chemical traces gives him a massive combat advantage. Meanwhile, his soldiers just stare at him, completely dumbfounded. His arteries bulge. His heart goes into overdrive, and the intense pressure in his brain pushes him right to the breaking point. Sprinting forward, he gets so annoyed at his slow squad, he actually wants to punch Kodra. He knew the theory, but now he's feeling it. Using arc too long literally causes slow brain damage. He finally reaches the heavy metal door. On the other side, nervous rebels wait for literally any movement. Boom! Luca kicks the door completely off its hinges, crushing a soldier. The rest instantly snap to attention, pointing their weapons right at him. As they open fire, Luca grips his blade. Standing totally still, he blocks every single bullet with his sword. The exact second they pause, he dashes forward instantly, taking out two guys. With ketchup flying absolutely everywhere, he slides his blade right across a third guy's neck, ending him before he even blinks. Now watch this closely. The last terrified soldier shoulders a literal bazooka and fires. But with one effortless swing, Luca slices the rocket right in half mid-air. It explodes way before reaching him. Thick smoke fills the room. The rebel can't see anything, desperately praying that the monster is finally dead. Suddenly, Luca bursts through the smoke, charging straight at him. The stunned rebel realizes it's completely over. He's totally helpless. Right then, the Imperial platoon finally shows up, witnessing the absolute massacre and flying ketchup. Looking at the total carnage, Kodra is absolutely terrified. Sword still dripping, Luca asks the sergeant what he's waiting for. He barks that they are moving up, and to keep pace. Out of nowhere, heavy gunfire erupts. Rebels unleash a massive volley at the Imperial troops taking cover behind a wall. Luca quickly analyzes the room. He didn't expect such a massive space, which definitely means an established defensive line. Glancing at his map, he realizes they pushed super far. They're about to run straight into the fleeing nobles. He sends up a flying camera to scout the enemy setup. The drone spots around 100 troops and some civilians. Lillian might actually be in there. The sergeant warns Luca they are way too far ahead. He strongly suggests waiting for backup to arrive. Honestly, a smart call, especially since Luca's brain is totally frying from spamming the arc combat system so much. Gunfire explodes again. But wait, they aren't shooting at his squad. The shots are going somewhere totally different. Spotting the shift, Luca realizes another Imperial squad just pulled up. He instantly orders his men forward to use the distraction. The rebels are pouring bullets into the new squad, who quickly set up a heavy shield wall defense. But the sheer crazy firepower means those shields are going to completely shatter in just a few seconds. I know what you're thinking, why not attack now? But Luca mutters to wait. Their heavy weapons could pierce his armor. They've got about 8 of these heavy weapons. He has to wait for that perfect split second when half are stuck reloading. Finding that exact opening, Luca vaults right over his guys, yelling at everyone to spread out and find cover. The rebels instantly snap their aim to Luca. Seeing his boss charge without any shields, Kodra totally panics, but basic pistols and rifles just bounce off his armor. Hitting the ground, he draws his gun, aiming straight for the real threats, the heavy weapons. He takes the shot, triggering a massive chain of explosions. Moving insanely fast, Luca slides right into the middle of the enemy formation, so they can't even get clear shots. Then his sword becomes a blur. He chops the legs off 2 rebels like he's just trimming garden weeds. In this pure chaos, Luca is absolutely unstoppable. One rebel, terrified of dying, throws his hands up instantly. Luca orders Kodra to tie up the prisoners, and Kodra immediately obeys. Glancing around, Luca spots dead Imperial soldiers on the floor. Looking closer, he realizes they belong to L.A.'s platoon. T-how guys. Makes you think, doesn't it? His friend is so desperate he's sacrificing his own squad. Luca is seething with pure anger and disbelief. Luca just desperately wants to save L.A. Alright, you and I are jumping right into an impossible dilemma. As an Imperial soldier, he has to choose his mission or his friend. If he spots Lillian, instant execution. Honestly, Luca does not care if Lillian absolutely hates him provided she stays alive. He orders Kodrak to fall back and regroup with another squad immediately. The surgeon Kodrak hits Luca with hard facts. Basically says his combat skills are insane and he is a top-tier soldier but a totally garbage commander. Luca claps back. If he was not leading, they would have a massive body count. So what exactly is the issue here? Kodrak points out the obvious flaw. Luca constantly ditches his team to go totally rogue, which completely ruins his whole leadership vibe. Super annoyed, Luca fires back. He goes solo because his men are basically weak and cannot comprehend his tactics. Plus, hearing them complain about being useless is annoying. But Kodrak drops a reality check. Luca will not stay undefeated forever. Luca smirks and says he can mock him when that actually happens. Kodrak just nods, promising to remember that. As Kodrak leaves, Luca casually mentions he will keep the warning handy. If his methods are actually trash, he will think about it. Wishing him luck, Kodrak walks off amazed that such a massive ego can somehow coexist with an open mind. Moving forward, Luca spots burned walls and dead nobles scattered everywhere. The other hallways probably look exactly the same since the strike team already breached the tunnels. Now pay attention here. Luca admits this guy is a true friend, not just a battlefield buddy. But that friend is currently slaughtering Imperial troops for purely selfish reasons. A proper squad would never throw away lives just to hunt down rebels. Even if his friend finds Lillian escaping is impossible. Her dark fate is already sealed at this point. Luca knows his friend is blindly in love, but dying with her is pointless. It is just a reckless emotional outburst. Suddenly, a random noise echoes. Luca spots a man hiding right there. The guy instantly panics, throws his hands up and screams he is a Ramones family member. Cold as ice, Luca says he does not care about surrenders. He only wants Lillian Ramones. Looking away, the terrified hostage swears he has absolutely zero clue. But Luca catches his eyes shifting. That classic tell this guy is definitely lying. Luca crushes the guy's eye, making him shriek in pure agony. He demands to know where Lillian went, warning him this is his final chance. Breaking down, the hostage admits she went lower. He cries that he does not know any shortcuts since he is just a minor family member. Luca sharply asks if the guy saw his friend. The hostage nods frantically. It was Luca's friend who beat him half to death. He calls the guy a total lunatic, realizing they know each other. But mid-sentence, bam, Luca executes him on the spot, sending a massive blood fountain flying. Walking off, Luca shrugs it off. The guy was dead meat anyway, so a quick ending was basically a favor. I know what you're thinking. A cold killer, right? But today, even Luca is actually a bit rattled. Gunfire and screams echo closer. If his friend really abandons the Empire, what is Luca supposed to do next? Luca stands dead center in a room completely filled with slaughtered bodies. Amidst the carnage, Luca remembers how this friendship always kept him super paranoid about the future. But now the betrayal question finally needs a real answer. Determined to finish this, Luca steps right through the door over the dead. He instantly heads down another hallway, absolutely packed with corpses. Spotting the wrecked hall, Luca yells his friend's name. The blonde man back-turned glances over his shoulder, acknowledging Luca is finally here. Luca immediately calls him out for marching his own men to the grave for selfish reasons. Right there, the blonde guy stands firm, guarding a small group of survivors. He spots Vigo Ramones and the family, clearly noticing Lillian hiding among them. The guy confronts Luca, blaming all this chaos on her. Hand on his weapon, Luca admits this whole mess cannot just be swept aside. Tensions snap. The intruder looks Luca dead in the eye and challenges him. Drawing his blade, Luca calmly states he is going to beat some sense into him. Luca readies himself. He knows perfectly well that a real fight always throws wild curveballs. Watching the family run away, the intruder realizes Luca is just stalling for their escape. Because of this, he decides to slaughter the family first, even if Luca hates him forever. Anything to avoid having his best friend's blood on his own hands. But Luca reads his mind instantly, screaming that Lillian is now the main target. He charges, but bam, Luca shoots his former ally. You and I gotta see what happens next. Luca kept firing, desperately blocking the intruder's path. Normal bullets were useless, but Luca figured predicting his path could at least slow him down. Big mistake. The intruder actually boosted his cybernetic signals right before this mission, pushing his speed off the charts. Trust me, we both know one single shot was never going to slow him down. The Ramones family guards panicked, aiming every weapon straight at the intruder. No problem at all. He easily deflected the first bullet with his heavy gauntlet, bouncing it right back and completely terrifying one of the guards. Without even blinking, the attacker spun around and slashed the second guard with his sword. Vigo Ramones screamed for him to stop, but the attacker completely ignored him, driving the blade right through his head. With the guards totally wiped out, the intruder charged straight at the parents, dropping them both instantly. Targets eliminated. He slowly turned around, announcing that only Lillian was left on the menu. Luca fought desperately to stop him, but the assassin bragged he had plenty of time. Staring right at Lillian Ramones, the intruder swore he would not forget her until she was finally dead. Watch closely now. With his sword raised, he prepared to strike. He actually promised her a totally painless death, claiming it was his best offer. But the craziest part, she just stared right back and started laughing out loud even as tears poured down her face. While Lillian kept laughing, Luca screamed at the attacker to stop. Moving at lightning speed, Luca tackled the warrior, throwing him completely away from Lillian. They both crashed hard into the dirt while she just watched from a distance. Catching her breath, Lillian finally turned to watch the intense showdown, but the attacker easily pinned Luca down, pressing that heavy blade right against his throat. Even pinned, Luca asked if he saw Lillian actually laughing while her family died. Confused by her reaction, Luca then listened as the intruder finally explained everything. Lillian was finally free. Her entire life, she was just used as a pathetic marriage tool. Completely annoyed by that answer, Luca demanded to know what he meant. The intruder simply stood back up, leaving Luca pinned in the dirt. He ordered Luca to stop risking his neck for Lillian, claiming that in the end, she was just a filthy traitor. With Lillian helping him up, Luca pointed out that calling the families traitors was just a cheap excuse the Empire used to wipe them out. He kept pushing, arguing that if they were actually plotting treason, their security wouldn't have been this absolute garbage. Hearing himself speak, Luca suddenly realized his logic was totally spot on. You and I both saw it, invading the fort was tough, but wiping out these weak guards felt way too easy. Even with all that logic, the intruder just stared at Luca, asking why any of it mattered. Luca realized that if they didn't act soon, A was going to die right alongside Lillian. Even as A tried stopping her, Lillian confessed her father wasn't innocent at all. He had actually hidden a secret arcane relic. Looking straight at Luca, Lillian revealed that this crazy relic was the real reason the Empire attacked. She then literally pulled out the artifact, explaining it was the only thing keeping their entire fortress running. Totally confused, Luca asked why she was revealing all this now. But Lillian smiled, claiming she knew he never actually wanted to kill her. She then added that Luca just didn't want A to hate him. That completely stunned the warrior into silence. Lillian pointed out that Luca's biggest fear was actually A ending up slaughtered by the ruthless Empire. So she offered a wild deal to save all three of them, revealing the relic could power a hidden teleportation device deep underground. Locking her eyes right onto Luca, Lillian begged for his help so they could finally escape the Empire's deadly grip. Finally, she held the relic out toward Luca, leaving the massive choice completely up to him. Hearing about a teleportation device out of nowhere, Luca immediately doubted it, but Lillian swore it was a top-secret escape route hidden in the tunnels. She literally told Luca he could just kill her right now if he didn't trust her. However, she begged for his help to activate the portal since she also refused to let A die. She suggested they escape so Luca could fake his mission report, though Luca seriously doubted the Empire would ignore a teleport device. Lillian quickly assured him that only the main Ramones bloodline even knew this thing existed, swearing they would be completely safe once underground. Weighing the heavy choice, Luca honestly realized he did not care about what happened to Lillian at all. His only real priority was keeping A safe. His buddy's reckless ideas could easily get him killed, and faking his death on the battlefield would be super simple. After a moment, Luca lifted his head. The decision was finally made. He quickly cut A off, demanding he promise him one absolute thing before they continued. Luca laid down the rule: if the teleport crashed, I had to stay out of his way. He reminded him that even Lillian didn't want him to die today. Luca stared intensely at I, waiting for his absolute promise. I finally looked up and promised to keep the deal. He led the way downstairs with Luca right behind him. Trust me, you are going to want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. While Ela and Lillian pushed ahead, Luca actually guarded the entrance. He finally admitted defeat. Not only did he fail to stop Ella, but now he was basically acting as the fugitive's bodyguard. As they moved up, Ela suddenly called out, making Luca spin right around. Lillian walked right up, gently wiping the fresh blood off Ela's face before it could dry. Luca rolled his eyes, telling them to hurry up. Honestly, they should just get married already since they survived this mess. Holding his hands, Lillian looked totally crushed, apologizing that things had escalated this far. But Ella just smiled. He told her she was the one who totally changed his entire view of the world. Without her, he would have lost his mind. Thanks to her, he finally realized he wasn't some freak, just beautifully different. Watching this sweet moment, Luca put the pieces together. Lillian totally planted those crazy ideas. And that kind of thinking, it could easily spread, completely toppling the Empire and inviting a massive enemy invasion. No way was he letting the nation collapse. Luca decided he'd crush any threat himself, even if that meant taking out Ela. Deep down, he swore he wasn't a traitor. Reaching the tunnel, Luca finally let out a massive breath while Lillian confirmed this was indeed the secret route. Then she dropped a lore bomb. The Emperor totally manipulated her dad after he figured out how to power the fortress. Annoyed, Luca asked how much deeper this went. Lillian pointed ahead, promising they were super close right past the corridor. She thanked him, but Luca was ice cold. He claimed he was just repaying Hila, and next time he'd literally kill her. Then Luca actually said goodbye to Hila. He told him to stay safe, leaving the guy in complete stunned silence. Lillian started hyping up their escape plan. She suggested splitting up and meeting back at Border City once they were totally clear. She even invited Luca to ditch the Empire with them. His response, a hard no. Leaning against the cold wall, Luca looked completely drained by this absolute circus. Helping them was a massive mistake. Now he had to brainstorm a believable lie for his official report. He figured the base chief would just use him to babysit Kinuan. Since neither of them stood out, his boss probably wouldn't ask any annoying questions. Now pay close attention. They finally reached this massive closed door at the corridor's end. Luca shot Ayla a serious look, warning him to brace himself if the device was missing. Ayla knew the stakes. No teleporter meant instant game over. But as the panel clicked on, a super weird chill hit Luca. Luca's eyes instantly locked in. He frantically scanned around, trying to pinpoint that creepy vibe. As the heavy doors slid open, he knew the answer was inside. He literally shut his eyes, blocking everything out to focus his senses. The smell hit him like a truck. Fresh blood, heavy machine oil, and cold iron. He realized the room was dead quiet. His eyes snapped open in absolute horror. 4 fully armored Imperial guards were just standing there waiting. Yep, they had walked straight into a literal dead end. One guard alone was a nightmare. Fighting 4 of these tanks, absolutely impossible odds. The worst part, if they took Lillian alive, she'd break under torture and spill every single secret. Luca's dream of giving Ella a normal, happy life shattered into a million tiny pieces. To clear his name, he had to kill Lillian right now. But attacking her in front of the guards could trigger a massacre. I know what you're thinking right now, but do not blink. With soldiers watching, Ela knew it was now or never. Suddenly, a single gunshot strikes Lillian right in the head, and she instantly falls backward. Gun smoking in hand, Ella just stared at her lifeless body. A guard immediately stepped up aggressively, asking why they waited so long to shoot. Cold as ice, Ella lowered his gun. He claimed he just executed a totally useless hostage. The squad leader demanded a full report, suspicious about why they dragged the rebel down here. The troops grabbed Ayla, marching him right out of the room. Luca stood completely frozen, watching his best friend get dragged away. Cut to later. The captain is actually congratulating Luca for his outstanding work leading the 21st Battalion. Captain Himelas read over the report, praising Luca, but casually suggesting he bond with Kinuan to build some team trust. Then the topic switched to Lillian. The captain squinted, demanding to know why she picked Luca as her guide. Luca lied straight to his face, claiming he and Ella just used her as bait to steal the rebel teleporter. It sounded flawless, but the captain pushed back, questioning the obvious emotional bond Luca clearly had with her. Luca coldly replied, "They'd never ruin a mission for personal feelings. So what do you and I make of this? Wild right. Alright, stick with me." He finally admits the whole plan was just to give Lillian a fighting chance to survive. Sighing, the captain wraps things up, telling Luca to go get some sleep. But before he can leave, the boss calls him back. Hima drops a bomb. The Romana's family completely wiped out Ella's entire battalion. Seeing Luca completely stunned, the captain points out it was in the report. Those poor troops never even saw it coming. Taking a second, Luca fires back. If he were in Ella's shoes, he totally would have expected his own squad's elimination. After all, he is the best. Hearing this flex, Hima just grins and promises to expect great things from him. Later, on a high-speed train, they head toward the capital under starry skies. Inside his cabin, Luca completely passes out, exhausted from a truly insane mission. Even in sleep, his mind races back to Ella Lillian and that distant border city. Now watch this part closely. The image of Lillian being executed by her hero Ela haunts him. Luca realizes his own presence basically forced Ela to pull the trigger. Because Luca was there, Ella couldn't just run away with her. Despite the heavy grief, Luca clings to one win: he kept Ella alive. Back in the capital, our boys get tossed straight into healing capsules. For all their suffering, they become the only rookies to score the rank 7 crossed sword medal. Later, up on a rooftop terrace, Luca finds Ela and laughs at the sick irony of this medal. Luca admits he never saw Lillian's death coming. Honestly, he thought Ela would fight the whole Imperial Guard for her. Staring off into the distance, Ella flat out agrees. He would have if Luca hadn't been there. Then Ella casually mentions his family is thrilled about the medal, and actually tells Luca to just quit being a soldier entirely. That hits deep. Thinking about the entire squad Ela sacrificed for love makes Luca actually consider walking away. Finally, Ela cracks. He admits his family forced him into the guards, and drops a heavy line wishing he had died instead of Lillian. Bam! Luca instantly buries a brutal punch right into Ela's gut. While Ayla groans in pain, Luca snaps at him to watch his mouth coldly, noting that organs can be replaced. Turning his back, Luca curses his own weakness. But he says out loud, even with more power, the ending wouldn't change. Ella quietly asks what he actually did wrong. Luca just stays dead silent. Looking at his friend, Luca realizes the truth. Ella isn't some cold-blooded killer. He just couldn't save her. Knowing that Luca opens his hand, the shiny new metal hits the dirt and shatters completely. As airships fly overhead, this moment proves one thing: Luca does not belong to this empire. Ella then says he is heading home for a few months, his first break in 4 years. Before leaving, Luca asks about Lillian's past. Turns out she was desperately running from an arranged marriage set up for cash. The sickening part: the family was being paid to raise her as a dead groom's ghost wife. Zero freedom, zero choices. Hearing this completely sickens our boy. He finally grasps the absolute hell she lived through, and Ella confirms Commander Claude was the only decent person to her. Wait, it clicks. Claude was totally trying to set Luca up with Lillian. Suddenly Ella starts dying laughing. You and I are going to love this twist. Between laughs, Ella admits they tricked Claude into thinking Luca was the Centurion's secret kid. The craziest part, the lie actually worked, mostly because Hema treated Luca so well. So Claude honestly believed that if Luca knocked Lillian up, his elite status would buy her total freedom. This absolutely unhinged master plan leaves Luca completely speechless, but it also makes him realize something dark. His best friend is totally fine manipulating and sacrificing his own team, whatever it takes to win. Yet somehow, against all logic, Luca's trust in him doesn't break. A bit later, Luca meets up with Qinyuan, who sarcastically calls him a war hero. The instructor congratulates him on the shiny new metal, fully aware he was just sent there to spy for the boss. Luca brushes the praise off. A rank 7 trinket is literally nothing compared to what the instructor has pulled off. He casually drops that the boss sent him to learn leadership skills, which gets a good laugh out of Qinyuan. The instructor raises an eyebrow. Did your guys disobey direct orders? So what do you and I make of Luca's answer? He praises his team, but the instructor smirks. The real issue is Luca is too soft. Alright, you and I are jumping right back in. Unfazed, Luca explained. He preferred risking his own neck alone. Against all odds, they actually managed to survive until the very end. But Qinyuan completely disagreed. He warned Luca that rushing the front lines was seriously overloading his brain. He burned through energy meant for protecting his team. Honestly, it made everyone wonder why he didn't just use his companions as meat shields. Qinyuan made it clear, though. Those guys should have willingly sacrificed themselves, not been forced into it. Bringing up the past, Qinyuan reminded him how he saved Gilda and Gabriel. They would gladly die for him now. To Luca, that was just super obvious. Here was Qinyuan's extremely twisted advice. Build deep emotional bonds with your team, sure, but stay completely detached so you can throw them away without blinking. Luca flat out refused to ever do something that messed up. Qinyuan just laughed, calling him a really good boy for being so naive. Then Qinyuan dropped his ultimate toxic social hack. If you want total control, make them love you, but never love them back. Luca pushed back. What happens if guilt totally destroys his conscience after letting his people die? Qinyuan did not sugarcoat it at all. Get used to the blood, kid, or you will never claw your way to the top. Standing right up, Luca made a chilling promise. Next time he would try his absolute best to sacrifice his squad. Flashing a creepy, satisfied smile, Qinyuan completely approved. He patted his ego, calling him a good boy again. Fast forward to the next day. Luca stood totally alone on a transport pad, staring blankly up at the open sky. Back in his room, a crazy plot twist dropped. His captain suddenly ordered him to enroll at Acreia Academy. Hemilas explained the top dog always goes first. Plus, Ile completely rejected the offer because he wanted extra vacation time. Hearing that weak excuse, Luca figured Ile was still having a massive emotional breakdown. Now, pay attention, this is important for us. The captain warned his street manners would absolutely ruin his chances with the fancy Castoria family. Taking the hint, Luca accepted the crazy mission. Hemilas promised a personal guide was coming, swearing he would actually enjoy this annoying trip. The big departure time was finally here. Right on cue, a transport ship landed on the platform directly in front of him. From inside, the guide shot him a freezing glare, ordering him to get in. Luca stepped inside to find her sitting there, arms crossed tight. He tried being polite and introducing himself, but she instantly snapped at him to skip the boring formalities. Judging by that massive attitude, Luca guessed he was dealing with some spoiled noble girl his own age. When he asked if she was really the official guide, her reply was absolutely dripping with pure snobby disgust. Without missing a beat, Luca called her the Castoria family miss. She completely panicked, demanding to know how he figured out her big secret. With a smirk, Luca explained it was just a wild guess. Only a family member would disrespect the captain's orders like that. He easily figured out she was the commander's daughter sent to test if he was worth adopting. A tiny smile crept up just imagining himself flexing that super famous last name. He locked eyes with her, stating boldly that he knew exactly who gave her orders. Dropping the act, she introduced herself as Giselle Castoria, warning him not to act like a stray dog. Turning around, Luca started a fake apology. But you and I both know he didn't survive a literal bloodbath just to bow to a spoiled noble. Sighing, Luca slumped back in his seat, casually muttering that the boss would totally understand his position. Then he laid down the law. They follow basic orders. She guides, he follows. He basically asked if she could handle that simple job. Defeated Giselle turned away and slumped back into her seat in complete silence. Seconds later, the ship blasted off across the insane futuristic skyline. They eventually touched down on a shiny new platform, stepping out without a word. Taking the lead, Giselle ordered Luca to follow so she could dump him at his assigned dorm. While walking, a massive, imposing statue standing on the path completely caught his eye. Right at the bottom, glowing text honored Emperor Denrathea, the legendary father of the entire nation. Staring up, reality finally hit him. This was Acreia Academy, a legendary place he had only seen on television. Meanwhile, some random students started whispering about them. Spotting the uniform, the crowd immediately recognized the new guy as a badass Imperial Guard. Suddenly, a cocky, white-haired student violently shoves another kid aside. The guy falls hard at Luca's feet. With a cold look, the white-haired bully called it a complete waste of a good implant. Giselle glares, asking why he is frozen. Trust me, you want to see this. Alright, stick with me here. Right off the bat, she roasts his boring outfit, claiming cadets do not need flashy gear anyway. From a distance, a couple secretly watches Giselle totally stressing over the strict academy rules. Suddenly, Felix pops up with a massive smile, waving happily. He runs over super hyped to see his buddy, honestly thinking he would ditch without Elia. Our guy immediately introduces himself to Giselle, politely asking for a quick second alone with his friend. Without any fuss, she agrees to wait right there. The second Giselle walks away, Felix grabs him for a hug. He whispers that the Centurion must actually have a massive soft spot for him. Felix even jokes that the captain wants him as a son-in-law. But our hero instantly shoots that ridiculous idea down. Just the thought of marrying into the captain's family makes him shudder. They would probably end up killing each other by day one. Instead, he drops a truth bomb. He agreed to an adoption deal just to keep a close eye on Qinuan here. Walking away from their guide, Felix casually asks if he has gotten any cybernetic body mods yet. Now pay close attention here. A strange item marked 0001 gets secretly slipped into his hand. Staring at the palm of his hand, he looks completely shocked. Felix then waves goodbye with his crew, joking about how famous cadets are nowadays. Walking back to Giselle, our guy realizes that this new intel is pure gold. Surviving just got easier. He learns his dorm is marked by a specific crest carved onto the wall. Basically, it is the trash-tiered dorm for lower sector kids and completely broke nobles. But honestly, he does not care at all. His eyes stay completely locked in and determined. Walking ahead, he smirks. A social ladder exists everywhere, and honestly, an easy life is just plain boring anyway. The two of them finally step inside to check things out. Inside, a tiny robot shows off the room. Our guy ironically calls it a literal palace. Leaning a hand on the table, he wonders if commoners and broke nobles actually live like this. He flops into a chair, realizing this Empire Academy is no joke. Giselle stands there, confirming this is his new home. She hands over her emergency contact number, which makes him question why she seems so insanely hostile. She bluntly says she is just following orders. He immediately respects that she actually takes her job seriously. Watching her leave, he jokes he will probably never call her. She casually fires back that she fully expects that. But right before leaving, she stops to drop one final serious warning. I know what you are thinking. Avoid the dorm leader. Yeah, that just instantly sparks his curiosity. Giselle claims this girl is the absolute biggest troublemaker here. Suddenly, a shadow walks down the hall. Sitting alone, our guy mutters to himself, wondering why the huge warning. Suddenly, the doorbell violently interrupts his thoughts. He opens the door and bam, a young woman. She introduces herself as Barbara, the dorm leader. Literally, the exact person Giselle just warned him about. Playing it cool, he formally introduces himself as a cadet guard. Instantly, his cybernetic eye flashes, analyzing her every move. While chatting, she sizes him up. She quickly notices his cheap clothes and total lack of a fancy noble surname. Remembering the warning, he plays dumb. He mentions he just got here, totally ignoring all those red flags. Barbara figures out he is from the slums. Surprisingly, she praises him for actually making it as an Imperial Guard. Throwing it right back, he compliments her. Being the dorm leader is no small feat either. That gets a genuine smile out of her. He realizes she must have grinded insanely hard to reach the top. She then invites him for a walk, casually claiming that giving the grand dorm tour is just part of her job. He quickly realizes she sacrificed her tiny break between classes and a bath just to come say hello. Watching her walk away, he respects the hustle. This girl is dangerously efficient with her schedule. Later on, at the massive main academy building, he and Giselle become the absolute center of everyone's attention. Everyone is staring. With a super sharp look, Giselle silently judges her new companion for a second. She drops a bombshell. Thanks to her father's strict orders, they are stuck in classes together for a whole week. Right on cue, a familiar voice calls out. He turns and sees Barbara walking up, offering Giselle a friendly wave. Zero hesitation. The noble coldly orders Barbara to get lost, making the poor dorm leader flinch and shrink back. So what do you and I make of this? Barbara just wanted to say hi, but Giselle turns her back coldly, shutting her down. Alright, stick with me here. Giselle hurries our guy along, nagging him about his first class. But as she drags him off, he glances back at Barbara. Standing there totally alone, she looks completely withdrawn. Definitely not the confident dorm leader vibe. He turns his head forward, leaving the whole scene behind with a deadpan expression. When he asks why things are so awkward between them, Giselle bluntly claims they just started academy together. Still confused by the drama, he remembers Giselle giving him that strict warning about Barbara earlier. He decides to toss the rumors aside for now. He needs to focus strictly on his ultimate goal of hitting noble rank within 2 months. Later on, he is chilling on a hallway bench waiting for class. To kill time, he just idly spins a little object in his hand. Out of nowhere, another student marches up aggressively, demanding to know his relationship with Giselle. This guy is acting super defensive, completely exposing his massive crush on the noble girl. Wanting to mess with him, our guard ruthlessly mocks the obvious crush. This instantly makes the poor student blow up in pure rage. Faster than lightning, the guard grabs the guy by the wrist and violently twists it, making him shriek in pain. But a second later, he feels bad for projecting his own annoyance onto a kid and drops it. Blinking back literal tears, the utterly defeated student begs to know if he is actually dating Giselle. Now they are awkwardly sitting together on the bench. The guard asks a question, but the stubborn kid demands why he should even answer. Time for a little trade. The guard offers to hype the kid up to Giselle, but only if he spills why she absolutely despises Barbara. Finally cracking under pressure, the student admits that things were not always this messy. Now pay close attention here because he claims the rivalry exists solely because Barbara is completely cursed. He explains that wildly dangerous incidents with hacked androids always seem to follow her around. The guard seriously doubts it is her fault. But the student swears the craziest part is how Barbara keeps desperately trying to make friends despite all the literal danger. He even leaks that she only got the dorm leader spot because nobody else wanted to deal with that insane, exhausting workload. Right at that exact second, the student suddenly points straight down the hall. A mean-looking group of classmates starts cornering Barbara. Boom, one of the girls aggressively dumps a huge drink right over Barbara, completely ruining her uniform. The nasty squad boxes her in while the bully who threw the drink smiles and fakes a sarcastic apology. The bully smirks and offers to wash it. Barbara politely turns her down, saying she will just change later. Looking at her crew, the bully mocks how her generosity got rejected. Glaring fiercely, she orders Barbara to strip off the wet clothes right then and there. You can see Barbara physically shaking, gripping her wet clothes, totally frozen by the pure intimidation. Sitting on the bench, our two guys watch this mess. You and I both know Luca is not letting this slide. Realizing this bullying happens constantly, he grips his weapon, deciding Barbara is incredibly lucky he is here today. Running purely on built-up anger, he gets perfectly ready to launch his daggers. Wham! With a lightning-fast strike, Luca knocks the cup away, making the bully shriek. He bluntly tells her to back off, warning he fights everyone totally equally. Terrified by his insane aura, the mean girl and her posse instantly backpedal. Stepping right up, Luca physically blocks them from Barbara like a total shield. Completely stunned by his rescue, the dorm leader softly whispers his name. He just glances back at her, keeping his guard up. With the annoying bullies handled, Barbara finally stammers out a thank you. Flashing a grin, Luca casually wonders if hanging with her means the rogue androids will hunt him next. Sweating bullets, the student warns him the girl is Kalisa Kano, and he just picked a fight with a massive nightmare. Luca literally does not care at all. He brushes off her powerful family, confidently stating they will absolutely never touch him. The student panics, explaining that the Kano family runs a brutal underground street gang. They are almost certainly hunting for Luca right now. Freaking out, he explains Kalisa attacked because her actual boyfriend supposedly got hit by that crazy bad luck curse floating around Barbara. Standing there in silence, Luca just quietly processes this insanely wild new information. Suddenly, Giselle stomps right into their conversation. She glares at them with absolute pure disgust. Never missing a chance to troll, Luca loudly suggests the kid confess his undying love. Stuttering in absolute panic, the kid steps back. He begs Luca to be his wingman before literally sprinting away to admire her safely. Watching him run, Giselle coldly jokes that Luca made a new buddy. Luca casually drops the name, telling her it was Enrico Lon. Shivering, Giselle openly admits Enrico seriously creeps her out. She always feels him staring from the shadows. Hearing that Luca realizes changing her mind is hopeless. Trust me, you and I know this drama is far from over. Alright, stick with me here. A teacher actually confronts Luca about using a knife on a girl. Chilling in his chair, Director Gide Alburn tells him to relax, knowing the academy is completely suffocating. Standing before Gide, Luca just nods at the warning. The director calls him a wolf among sheep. Luca smirks and replies that the real problem, the sheep aren't acting like actual prey. Gide explains that while these students look harmless, some are literal monsters hiding in sheep's clothing. He warns that these hidden monsters are way worse than wolves. Handing back Luca's weapon, Gide tells him to be careful, and Luca promises. Walking away, Luca just smiles. He couldn't care less about the academy's fake little monsters. His only goal is exposing the truth behind the witch's curse. Cut to the dark forest. Strolling totally alone behind the gym trail, Luca gets ready for the absolute worst. Knowing the rumors about Barbara are out, he figures the cursed robots will hunt him down soon. Now pay close attention here. He stops as an unfamiliar voice from the dark asks if he's the new guy. Seconds later, a guy steps up laughing that some low-level thug finally tracked Luca down. The man and his goons announce that Kalesa's actions are basically Kano family law now. Smirking like a total villain, the thug mocks Luca for just being a guard in training. Completely surrounded, Luca looks totally bored. He straight up asks if they seriously think they can win. Even then, the group's confident leader offers Luca one single chance to apologize. But Luca claps back, warning they can leave right now with their organs intact. The thug glares. The guy throws a massive punch, and Luca actually admits the form is surprisingly good. As the fist comes flying, the enemy dares him to dodge, but Luca holds totally steady. Suddenly, a patrol robot rolls up loudly, asking if anyone needs help. This random machine totally panics the thugs. They have no clue why it's out here. With the robot crashing the party, the leader bails, promising payback. They run off, refusing to fight it. Without missing a single beat, Luca rejects the help and orders the robot away. Unable to obey, the machine starts glitching out, repeating that leaving is completely impossible. You and I both know this won't end well. The thug watches the glitching in total confusion. In a flash, the patrol bot's eye glows a terrifying red. Its programming just snapped. Moving at insane speeds, the machine violently takes down a goon, covering the other guy and remains. Absolutely horrified, the leader steps back, looking right at Luca. Instantly, the rogue robot winds up for another strike, lunging right at its next terrified target. At the very last second, Luca delivers a brutal kick, sending the crazy robot flying backwards. Trembling on the dirt, the terrified thug screams that Barbara's curse is actually real. Luca just stares him down, saying students shouldn't believe in curses. Then bam, the machine charges him. Watching the robot, Luca sees it running at absolute maximum output. Luca figures out the system, calculated it needed 100% power to fight him. This is no random glitch. Actually, Luca realizes someone is pulling the strings from the shadows like a literal puppet. Grinning like an absolute madman, Luca gets into a stance. Time to finally have some fun. Quick as lightning, Luca sidesteps effortlessly, dodging a heavy strike for a brief moment. Right then, he notices the android's attacks are strangely clean. He wonders if it's running advanced combat software. Even fighting multiple metal enemies, Luca is basically yawning. He needs a challenge that will actually test him. So Luca steps forward and absolutely crushes one android's chest with a brutal flying kick. Mid-brawl, he notices something super weird about this specific bot compared to the normal models. Smiling at the danger, Luca taunts it, telling the controller to attack him with absolutely everything. Then he flips onto the robot's shoulders, laughing that this strategy is totally useless here. Using that sweet momentum, Luca completely destroys it, mocking how the machine keeps getting easily distracted. So, what do you and I make of that retreat message popping up from the wreckage before shutdown? Let's dive right in. Watching the last enemy drop, Luca literally complains the fight ended way too fast for his taste. The boss instantly bails from the forest. Watching him run far away, our boy just sighs, calling the whole thing a massive pity. Suddenly, security drones swarm the sky above, blasting his exact position with bright spotlights. Later, Luca chills outside an academy building. After that crazy stunt, the campus security squad politely asks him to help with their investigation. Inside the interrogation room, investigator Jillian Campbell drops the facts. She declares the mastermind is hiding on campus, meaning absolutely everyone is getting fully investigated. Could it be someone from the slums? Campbell shuts that down instantly, claiming nobody from down there could ever hack their firewalls. Luca is confused. Why would a rookie student like him be any use to this official campus investigation? She says it is all because of his rare Archivictima skill. Catching his surprised reaction, Campbell decides to drop one more massive hint. She reveals skill users are tracked on a secret list, and the real clue points straight to whoever originally taught him that move. Hearing that, the image of his master Quinuan flashes into his head. You and I both gotta wonder who trained this guy. Suddenly, Giselle corners him, demanding answers. Why is he taking orders from her dad, especially after she warned him to stay away from Barbara? Not even making eye contact, Luca casually says he cannot just watch helpless people get bullied. Giselle asks if he would pull the same stunt again. Classic main character energy, he totally says yes. She then suggests dragging Kalisa into a room to strike a deal, thinking pure diplomacy will fix everything. Luca just stares at her in complete silence, trying to figure out why she cares so incredibly much about fixing this mess. He quickly realizes her bold confidence clearly comes from knowing she can completely control Kalisa. Figuring that out, he finally agrees to chat. Smiling, Luca playfully adds that he would rather avoid getting the principal breathing down his neck. Plus, our guy slyly mentions he has a little theory to test out himself. Inside the meeting room, Kalisa is already playing victim, crying that Barbara totally punched her boyfriend first. Sitting right across from her, Luca casually asks if she sent her boyfriend to hunt Barbara on purpose. Hit with that blunt question, Kalisa completely freezes up in panic. Pointing right at the board, Luca notes her boyfriend used a Kanov family crest for revenge, exactly like they tried on him. He flat out asks if Kalisa just wanted an excuse to attack Barbara. She jumps out of her chair, screaming for him to shut up, aggressively denying everything. The second she starts yelling, Giselle steps in and orders Kalisa to chill out. Wearing a dead serious look, Giselle brutally cuts her off, demanding silence immediately. Now, watch closely here. Giselle scolds Kalisa, then tells our boy to step outside for a bit, which he actually does without causing any drama. Standing out in the hall, Luca confirms his spicy little control theory. But why the heck did she not stop Kalisa from bullying Barbara earlier? Seriously, she has been at this academy for 2 whole months. Stopping this drama would have been easy, instead of waiting for some forced negotiation tactic. Moments later, Giselle walks out, complaining about her rival throwing a tantrum, reminding Luca that he supposedly wanted zero drama today. Smirking, Luca admits he was merely doing a fun little test on android manipulation. Giselle sarcastically asks if he is playing detective. Luca jokes the real cops are already busy. Seeing her annoyed face, he admits he is actually amazed she shut Kalisa down with one sentence. Giselle brags that her noble family name holds serious power, meaning lower tiers cannot ever ignore her orders. Without missing a single beat, Luca asks if that is why she ordered the attack. Giselle looks super confused by the accusation, but our guy just keeps pushing. He points out she sees Barbara as an important pawn, so using her noble resources like that makes total sense. Completely furious, Giselle grabs him by the collar, threatening him. Never backing down, Luca hilariously asks if her robotic enhancements are messing with her brain. Shocked, she instantly lets him go, takes a nervous step back, and apologizes. Storming off, Giselle warns him to prepare for massive consequences if he keeps causing trouble. Even with Giselle looking guilty as hell, Luca senses something is completely wrong with this picture. Suddenly, he notices her hand shaking violently. Why on earth is she acting so scared? Watching her leave, he realizes his reflexes just confused things. So what do we think happens next? Alright, stick with me here. Luca is sitting with Barbara, while half the school aggressively stares. Suddenly, she slides over and shoves a massive tray of sandwiches right into his face. Eat up. Luca is totally confused, but Barbara quickly explains. It is just her special way of saying thanks for stopping Kisa. She even offers to be his personal chef, but Luca immediately shuts it down to avoid rumors. Shot down, Barbara just lowers her head and sits there in total awkward silence. Still looking at the ground, she whispers that she honestly does not care about any misunderstandings. Luca starts wondering if she actually likes him, but something feels super off. He flat out warns her about the crazy risks of hanging around him. Barbara simply mumbles that she has absolutely no idea what to do. Time for a test. Luca drops a bomb. Kisa only bullied her because Giselle ordered it, and Giselle absolutely will not stop until she wins. But instead of crying, Barbara calmly confirms she already knew all about that toxic drama. Pushing harder, Luca straight up asks if she knows the real reason Giselle hates her. Now pay close attention here. Her entire expression flips as she asks why she should tell him. You and I can see the innocent act fading. Staring her down, Luca suddenly remembers that creepy vibe she has been giving off all day. Right then, Director Gid's warning loudly rings in his head. Watch out for the wolf in disguise. Looking at her terrifying reaction, Luca finally realizes the fake sheep is actually Barbara herself. Safely back in his room, Luca hops on comms and reports meeting Kisa's ex-boyfriend. Campbell pops up on the hologram. He praises Luca, confirming Kisa totally sent her ex after Barbara. Boom. That confirms it. Kisa completely faked the entire situation just for a cheap excuse. Luca asks if Campbell will use his badge to bust their suspect, but the investigator calls it way too risky. This is literally the 6th incident, and someone has already died. Campbell just wants to nail this arrogant culprit. So Luca officially pitches his wildest idea yet investigate Barbara. Campbell laughs it off. A lower sector student hacking high-tech androids, basically impossible. But Luca claps back. Nobles absolutely can. Campbell agrees they could easily mess with android production lines. Before signing off, Campbell drops one final massive clue that changes the whole game. Barbara is secretly funded by the Castoria family. Luca goes totally silent in pure shock. Cutting the feed, Luca admits that is insane intel. He needs a minute to process everything. I know what you're thinking. The puzzle pieces fit, but something huge is definitely missing. Fed up with the dead ends, Luca decides to confront Giselle directly to squeeze out some answers. No time to waste. He immediately puts his crazy plan into motion. Watching the training field, he remembers Ale's warning. Nobles must literally prove their worth or get violently tossed aside. He tracks Giselle down to a messy workshop. Seeing her hustle, he realizes she is way different from the hostile brat he first met. She spots him lurking and aggressively asks what the heck he wants. Luca casually flirts, saying he just wanted to see her. She instantly spits her water everywhere. Coughing, she tells him to cut the comedy since she is incredibly busy. So Luca drops the act, revealing he is officially working on the Academy investigation. Totally unfazed, Giselle flexes her status. She is the Centurion Chief's daughter, remember? Luca hits her with the truth he knows her family secretly sponsors Barbara. Is that why she wants Barbara expelled? Giselle snaps back, blaming a crazy curse for her pure hatred. But when he brings up their old friendship, Giselle completely panics and tries to walk away. Not so fast. Luca warns her that security is treating the android attack as malicious sabotage. He calls her out as the prime suspect. Giselle furiously screams that she was literally a victim too. Stone Cold Luca points out that criminals always play the victim. Plus, she has the cash and tools to pull it off. Seeing her absolute meltdown, Luca finally tells her to breathe. He does not actually think she did it. He begs her to just spill everything she knows so they can crack this stupid case. Speak of the devil, Barbara suddenly appears. She smiles, saying she was super worried when he wasn't in his usual hiding spot. Makes you wonder, right? How did she easily find him? Let's jump right into this mess. Checking his tail, he noticed her expression was completely weirdly unbothered. How did she block his intel in literally 10 minutes? Annoyed, he snapped at Barbara to wipe that smug little smile off her face because it was seriously starting to get on his nerves. Barbara just blinked, totally acting like she had no clue. She quickly played the victim card, claiming she only liked him because he saved her from Kisa. Boom! Before Barbara could spin another lie, Luca literally chucked a chair, smashing it to pieces. Giselle freaked out immediately, asking him what the heck he was doing. Looking absolutely terrifying, Luca shot back that he was originally just trying to kill time, but now, he was completely done playing nice. He rounded on Barbara, calling her out for making him look like an idiot. Meanwhile, that woman stayed hidden behind the wreckage, nervously calling Barbara's name. Luca's entire vibe just went ice cold. He told Barbara she had zero clue what was actually going on. Then his intense gaze swept the ruined room, leaving Giselle completely paralyzed in shock. Without another word, Luca strolled right past Giselle down the hall. Trying to break the tension, Giselle nervously offered to leave his food right there. She turned to make her escape, while Luca just stood there, watching her go. But nope, escape denied. Barbara sneaked up from behind and grabbed Giselle right by the shoulder. Smiling like a total creep, Barbara hugged her, whispering something super sketchy right into Giselle's ear, before letting out a completely unhinged little laugh. Throwing out a casual goodbye, Barbara promised they would meet again soon. Once she vanished, Luca and Giselle were left standing in absolute super awkward silence amidst the wreckage. Her legs literally gave out. Giselle collapsed to the floor while Luca just stood there beside her. Watching her break down, Luca finally let out a heavy sigh. Now watch closely. This single reaction proved everything, exposing the true villain, their twisted dynamic, and the genuinely innocent party. He walked over and softly said her name, but she immediately begged him to stop asking any more questions. Sitting in the rubble, Giselle told Luca to just enjoy regular academy life until his graduation day. She practically begged him to drop the whole thing right there. Fast forward a bit, Luca tried calling Giselle on a glowing hologram, but she completely ghosted him. He figured it made sense since she started dodging him right after he reported the messy situation to the chief Centurion. But get this, Hima's reaction to the report was super unexpected. He literally dumped the entire case in Luca's lap to handle however he wanted. Which is crazy weird, right? The Imperial Guards could easily wrap this up fast, especially with Giselle heavily involved. Even as a rookie guard, Luca felt the massive weight of this job crushing him. Taking orders from the absolute top forced him right into a high-pressure nightmare. Still, our guy accepted the mission, totally knowing everyone was expecting an absolute miracle. Back in the present, seeing his call totally rejected annoyed him. That's when all his suspicion immediately zeroed in on Barbara. Except classic anime logic, a low-tier student shouldn't have any clearance to hack the Academy's security androids. But wait, he remembered that high-class nobles could actually bypass them. This proved Kisa used Barbara to hunt down Giselle. But while Luca brainstormed a new way to reach her, Enrico suddenly called out of absolutely nowhere. I know exactly what you're thinking. Enrico excitedly sprinted over, asking if Luca hyped him up to Giselle. Flashing a cheeky smile, Luca lied and said he totally did perfectly using the guy for his own grand plan. Reality check time, Giselle brutally rejected Enrico to his face. She flat out said she had zero interest and that he was honestly just making her super uncomfortable. She then flat out told Enrico to stop following her around. The poor guy literally started crying, holding his pathetic flower bouquet. Luca just stood back, watching the dude sprint away in pure agony. Feeling slightly bad after totally using him, Luca promised to help the guy out someday. But right now, new plan activated. He finally stepped out of hiding. He called out Giselle's full name and she casually admitted she already knew he was lurking around. She immediately threatened to snitch to her powerful dad, but Luca cut her off, basically saying that wouldn't work at all. Why? Because he dropped the bomb that he had already told Tamis everything about her messy involvement. Furious, she demanded to know why he did that. Luca coldly shot back that he didn't owe her any warnings, leaving her stumbling backward in absolute shock. She realized her perfect reputation and entire family status were completely destroyed in a matter of seconds. Seeing red, Giselle grabbed Luca by the shirt collar, screaming that this total disaster was entirely his fault for showing up. Unfazed, Luca gently caught her hands, offering to fix everything if she spilled the truth. She just laughed in his face. He was just a trainee, right? But Luca loved a dramatic plot twist. He looked right at her and asked what she would do when he officially joined the Castoria family. So what do you and I make of this? With her completely stunned, he asked why a high-class noble was mysteriously assigned as his academy guide. Alright, stick with me here. He just dropped his ultimate flex, a certified genius with a shiny medal and the chief centurion's full backing. Luca promises to help her no matter what. But honestly, Giselle is super suspicious. Is this guy actually for real? So Luca lays it out. Solving this case gets him major points with the boss. It is a total win-win for both of their careers. Hearing this, Giselle leans in and drops a massive truth bomb. She is the one controlling the androids and actually created Barbara's curse. They sit down and she finally starts spilling the tea. She reveals Barbara was not just some random girl, but a friend she completely trusted. Flashback to 3 years ago. Giselle wanted to meet her family's new sponsored student. Enter Barbara, super nice and seriously talented. But according to Giselle, the drama started from pure jealousy when some random boy started hitting on Barbara. Everyone loved Barbara. She had that perfect personality. Scared of losing her bestie, Giselle made a super dumb move. She sent a disguised robot just to scare the poor guy away. Giselle continues her confession, explaining she even rigged the robot with a creepy audio recording. It told him to stay away and follow it into the dark. But man, this little prank went horribly wrong. The kid smashed his head and quit the academy. Giselle panicked, trashed the robot, but still got slapped with an official investigation. Guess who caught her tampering with the machines? Barbara. She figured out the entire plot. So Barbara actually told Giselle to play the victim, to throw off the heat. Using her repair access, Giselle installed a sketchy little chip that Barbara handed over. Out of nowhere, the android totally lost its mind. It attacked Giselle, turning her into victim number 2. Watch closely because this is where everything flips. The real curse starts, and Barbara starts making some seriously creepy demands. She ordered Giselle to back off, claiming she needed fresh targets. Just like that, Giselle realized she got totally played. Completely stuck and unable to fix this mess alone, Giselle was trapped in Barbara's twisted game, with zero way out. Suddenly, a glitched screen pops up. It is Barbara, aggressively demanding to know if Giselle leaked their secret to Luca. Barbara's voice screams traitor, causing Giselle to suddenly clutch her head in sheer agony. The craziest part, how on earth did Barbara hack into a personal device that was supposed to have maximum security? But wait, a weird buzzing gets louder. That sound is not coming from the tablet. They need to run right now. That terrifying mechanical hum, it is a heavy-duty attack drone locking onto their position. Boom, a shot rings out, blasting Luca point blank and sending both of them flying backward. Ducking behind a thick pillar, Luca gasps for air. He quickly crawls over to Giselle, who is knocked completely out. Ripping a chunk of his shirt, he ties it tight around his bleeding wound. Getting sniped by a combat drone is bad news. Fighting it head-on would definitely get him killed today. And to make this even worse, his only weapon right now is a tiny pocket knife. You and I know he cannot just hide forever. His eyes go dead cold. He is about to take Barbara down. Giselle finally wakes up and asks if he is hurt. Luca just winces, basically saying, yeah, getting shot really stings. Before they can chat, another massive burst of gunfire forces them to hug that pillar. Pinned down, Luca curses. He needs the drone's exact position to launch a counterattack. Suddenly, a wild idea hits him. He shouts out to Giselle and desperately demands she hand over a pocket mirror. Checking the reflection, he finally spots the hovering drone. Without hesitation, he launches his tiny knife right at the machine. Direct hit. A massive explosion shreds the drone into pieces, blowing him backward once again. Out of nowhere, Luca's radio turns on by itself. Super confused, he tries to hail Giselle, who is right nearby. Giselle tries her communicator too, but quickly realizes every single thing is completely jammed. Then Barbara's creepy voice echoes through the radio. She furiously asks why Giselle betrayed her after all her so-called protection. The second Barbara mentions Luca's name, someone grabs Giselle's wrist with an iron grip. It is Luca. He violently crushes the communicator, declaring they are totally done listening to this crazy lunatic. Scooping Giselle up into his arms, he says they need to find a safe zone immediately. While they make their escape, Felix jumps on a separate channel confirming he just arrived. So what do you and I expect next? Well, Felix has zero clue about the mission. Things are about to escalate. Alright, you and I are diving into pure madness. Giselle was completely shocked when Felix confirmed her own father was pulling the strings. That confirmation hit hard. She just stood there speechless, realizing her dad actually abandoned her. While she started panicking, our guy Luca kept it professional. Sure, she was the chief's daughter, but giving civilians special treatment usually ruins the whole mission. Luca turned back to Felix to chat, leaving the stunned noblewoman standing in total silence. Felix pointed right at Luca's wounded arm, asking if it hurt, but Luca brushed it off entirely. Smiling like it was nothing, Felix figured they were good to keep moving forward anyway. He asked if Luca could run at normal speed, and our guy confidently told him not to worry. But right as Felix radioed in his location with them, boom, a sniper shot came out of nowhere, completely blowing off his mechanical arm. Panic mode activated. They instantly scrambled for cover to dodge another bullet. Weapon up, Luca knew the shooter was super close, but he could not sense anyone. Classic weird military logic, almost like their own royal guards fired. Felix started doubting Barbara's skills. Suddenly, a totally unfamiliar voice chimed in demanding a little chat. To his absolute shock, Luca actually recognized the enemy shooter. Now pay attention here. The voice mocked that Felix would be dead if he aimed higher, making Luca scream, asking exactly who he was. The creepy sniper calmly replied he knew they were just rookie guards in training. Skipping the whole villain monologue, he got right to business. His demand was super simple. He told them to hand over Giselle right now. Luca figured it was a standard ransom gig, but the attacker claimed his princess specifically wanted her. Things just got really personal, and bringing up Giselle distracted Luca, while Felix got ambushed again. Giselle stared at Luca, completely frozen in fear. Honestly, the crazy scene left Luca totally paralyzed too. The invisible dude lifted Felix by the throat mid-air, then the guy deactivated his camo suit, stepping out like an absolute terrifying final boss. Luca spotted a fancy laser targeting system projecting right from the heavily armed bad guy. That high-tech camouflage armor was exactly why they couldn't spot him earlier on. Staring death in the face, Giselle tightly squeezed Luca's hand, feeling the massive danger. Playing the hero, Luca stepped in front, telling her he would buy time and to run like crazy when he gave the signal. She tried arguing against this crazy plan, but Luca wasn't having it, grabbing her arm and ordering her to just trust him. Doing a quick countdown, both prepared to act at the absolute perfect moment. Luca yelled go, and Giselle bolted. He immediately raised his gun, laying down cover fire while she sprinted away into the distant background. You and I both know bullets should hit right. Well, Luca's shots completely missed because this guy had insane, absolute superhuman reflexes. The totally overpowered enemy smirked, saying he didn't want to kill two freshmen. That specific word confused Luca, making him wonder if this guy was actually an upperclassman. Moving like lightning, the stalker warned Luca to focus or die. Blocking the strike, our cadet realized this dude was definitely a legit royal guard. The psycho then admitted Giselle was his real prize, but he needed to crush Luca first. Sent flying backward from the heavy impact, Luca knew keeping this up meant a guaranteed loss. Still falling through the air, he frantically brainstormed a crazy survival plan. Taking advantage of the mid-air view, Luca read his opponent and cooked up a wild strategy. He spotted a shiny knife on the floor, probably dropped by Felix. Thinking fast, Luca chucked his empty pistol straight at the blade. The gun popped the knife up, he grabbed the handle hard and charged right back in. Slashing forward with lightning speed, Luca's shiny new blade smashed right into the enemy's guard. Shocked by the hit, the guard asked if Luca used Aki's martial arts. He then perfectly dodged Luca's combo, jumping back to create space. Standing back, the cocky opponent praised Luca's moves, promising to end this with one final lesson. He casually joked that their little warm-up game had already gotten way too complicated anyway. Seeing the killer intent spike, Luca gripped his stolen knife tighter, staying on high alert. Wounded Luca wondered why he hesitated, silently praying Giselle was completely safe. His vision started blurring, meaning he had to finish this fast. The elite guard arrogantly told him to step aside and not waste his life. Taking a deep breath, Luca figured this elite jerk found the struggle entertaining. So what do you and I take from this? Pain doesn't matter anymore. Luca raises his blade, channeling everything into one epic final strike. Luca throws a punch that does absolutely zero damage. Stick with me here. The guy literally tanks the hit, praises Luca's form, and asks him to join the Empire. Staring into his soul, the enemy asks if Luca honestly thinks he is unkillable. Luca smirks. The Empire is one thing, he says. Planting his sword in the dirt to block another massive hit, Luca fires back. Your garbage attitude, though, that is completely unacceptable. Honestly, it is getting super annoying. Hearing that sass, the enemy just bursts out laughing. He warns that having a rebel attitude does not fly in the Empire. Then he drops his name. Rick Kaiser, a proud Republican. Bleeding but still talking trash, Luca asks if he is a traitor. Rick corrects him smoothly. Try resistance fighter instead. Luca flashes a cocky grin. You sure bark a lot. Rick stays chill. This is way more than just barking. Suddenly Rick starts floating, his entire body glowing with raw aura. Then boom, he blitzes forward at insane speed, attacking Luca directly. Crazy enough, Luca catches the attack bare-handed, but the sheer force is way too much, literally shattering his armored hand into pieces. Not letting up, Rick charges right back in, completely destroying Luca's other arm. Now watch closely, this is where it gets intense. Rick grabs his neck, demanding he beg for mercy. Completely helpless, Luca still drops a sarcastic, defiant smile. Annoyed Rick literally hoists him up into the air with just one hand. On the edge of death, Luca is still running his mouth. Rick sighs. If you somehow live through this, say hi to Kinuan. Game over. The very last thing Luca hears is the absolutely brutal snap of his own neck. Cut straight to the fancy Imperial Hospital. Felix finally wakes up in a hospital bed, groaning in pain and instantly calling out for Luca. Chilling right next to him, Luca casually points out the obvious. Yeah, talking is gonna hurt when your neck is completely busted. Turns out Felix has serious brain damage from his neck being snapped for so long. Honestly, Luca thinks the guy is super lucky. He remembers Giselle showing up out of nowhere with 4 guards. Without her crazy fast backup, Luca would probably be dead right now. Just then, Hemelis walks in, telling our boy to chill and stay in bed. Taking a seat, Hemelis waits for the official debrief. Luca confirms Felix did his job perfectly and threw down until the bitter end. Our guy runs through the entire insane battle step by step. Wrapping up the crazy story, Luca just shrugs and says, that is all. But then Hemelis drops a lore bomb. Rick Kaiser is actually Rick Silva, one of the Empire's absolute most wanted criminals. Shook Luca listens as his boss explains that top-tier criminals are kept totally secret, mostly because of massive government corruption. Luca is confused. Wait, what corruption? I thought this empire was supposed to be completely flawless. You and I both know something fishy is up. Hemelis finally decides to spill every dirty detail of this secret mission. Enter Operation Juliet, a massive 5-year master plan designed to infiltrate the very top bosses of the rebel faction known as Nemesis. Hemelis admits Nemesis is way too smart for normal tactics. Luca immediately asks, so did we fail because I let Rick get away? Still totally lost, Luca gets a shock. Hemelis smiles. Nope, the plan actually succeeded. They actually managed to plant spies right inside Nemesis, and get this, Barbara is secretly on their side playing the role of a hacker. Finding out Barbara had been setting this whole crazy scheme up just to hook them, Luca just sits there silently clenching his fists. It clicks. They were basically just disposable pawns in this game. He thinks about Felix's brain damage and everything Giselle went through. When he asks if Giselle knows the truth, Hemelis says no. It is better to keep her clueless. Leaning in, Hemelis asks Luca if he has any idea why he is revealing all this. The word disposable keeps ringing in his head. Luca seriously wonders if he is going to be thrown out like trash before achieving anything big. A digital panel pops up in his face. He is ordered to read the glowing document and sign it right away. Our boy is completely speechless. Hemelis warmly welcomes him into the Castoria family as the screen shows a literal adoption paper with Luca's name on it. Luca sits quietly by the bed while Felix remains completely knocked out cold. Messy treatment needles are scattered around. A bit earlier, Hemelis had warned him that validating the adoption papers would actually take some extra time. Luca also got a brand new spine implant. The doctors definitely warned him that taking out the old one was gonna hurt like absolute crazy. Finally awake, Felix faintly calls out to his buddy just as Luca is walking toward the door. Not even bothering to look back, our edgy cadet just taps his neck, basically confirming that he is already heading out. Dropping a quick good luck, Luca swaggers out. Cut to the Academy Training Center where he struts down the hall with everyone staring at him. Walking by, he catches a glowing digital poster showing off Barbara the Witch. So what do you and I take from this? His ultimate enemy was actually an infiltrated spy all along. Classic Manhwa twist. Luca thinks back to how that girl acted. It definitely wasn't just some fake act. He pauses for a second, staring blankly out the window, totally lost in his own thoughts. Stick with me here because you and I are about to watch him question everything. Was the orphanage and meeting Quinoan just pure coincidence? He looks back at the academy stuff, seriously wondering if any of those choices were actually his own doing. Even with all that, he admits one thing. He definitely didn't climb out of that hellhole purely on his own. Taking a determined step forward, he shoves those doubts away. No point overthinking it right now. Stepping away from the glass, he brushes it off as wild fantasy. The captain's intel, probably just a twisted loyalty test. Clenching his mechanical hand tight, he makes a choice. He's absolutely not letting this golden chance slip by. Standing right in front of the door, he hypes himself up. This is a once-in-a-lifetime shot. The door opens and Quinoan greets him, asking how academy life treated him. The instructor pours some tea and Luca drops a sarcastic reply. Oh, it was so incredibly fun, he almost stayed forever. Quinoan then expresses some actual regret about poor Felix. Taking a seat, Luca listens to how his friend was a top-tier recruit while grabbing his tea. He just stares at the cup seriously, doubting if the guy is actually being sincere. So Luca casually drops a bomb. He mentions Rick said hi and wanted him to know he was doing fine. Taking a slow sip of tea, Quinoan names Rick Silva Nunez. He claims he never pictured him turning into a traitor. Luca points out they seemed pretty tight. Quinoan nods, saying they worked together, and even praises Rick's insane reflexes. But when pressed, Quinoan firmly states he would never ever deal with a literal terrorist. Luca figures he absolutely cannot report this to the captain. He explains it's a huge life or death risk, so coming to Quinoan first was the smartest play. Hearing that the instructor shoots back a quick question, why care so much about Rick? Now watch closely, here is where it gets crazy. Ignoring him, Luca asks about Archie's combat arts. Quinoan immediately questions this sudden curiosity. Luca spills the beans. The Empire actually has a secret hit list for users of that exact technique. And yeah, that is exactly why Rick let him live. Total silence. The instructor just sips his tea. Then a smirk. He praises the kid for being sharp, calling him Luca Castoria. Stepping closer, Quinoan basically tells him he knows way too much for some random orphan. The kid doesn't flinch. He fires back that he completely understands what that implies. With the tension sky high, the instructor starts a history lesson. 200 years ago, the very first major rebellion in the Empire. It was led by this immigrant advisor, Noel Mulisa, a guy who literally built the Empire's own combat strategies. Knowing a head-on fight was suicide, Noel used pure brains. And boom, the Archie victim technique was born right out of that genius strategy. Quinoan quickly corrects it to Archie's combat arts. Listening to all this, Luca realizes his own fighting style. It literally came from a massive traitor. Quinoan finishes up, explaining this exact skill helped Noel and his crew resist the massive empire. They just kept handpicking the perfect people to use it. Luca has to admit the technique is totally overpowered in a fight, especially when you are completely out of other options. He pieces it together. The style was made for civilians, needing a flexible fighting method, not real soldiers. Quinoan nods, confirming he nailed it. The lore drop continues. Even during a massive Imperial sweep, Noel and his main squad somehow made it out totally alive. So they scattered everywhere, grabbing totally disposable recruits to go and attack the outposts. That way getting caught wasn't a big deal. They could just sacrifice the pawns to guarantee the main group got away cleanly. Luca totally sees the vision. Without wearing flashy armor, those traitors could easily just blend right into the normal crowds. And even without weapons, they could throw hands using Archie's combat arts and just vanish if things went south. You and I both saw that coming, right? Luca finally gets why Rick spared him and why the Empire tracks this specific style. When Luca asks how the Empire even found these guys, Quinoan cuts him off cold. They just killed absolutely every single suspect. He straight up admits they had zero time to sort out civilians from actual traitors. Entire zones were just completely purged to wipe them out. That brutal method finally crushed the rebellion, trapping plenty of those Archie's combat arts users for good. Luca asks if this is some buried dark history. Quinoan shrugs. The Empire doesn't exactly hide it, but they definitely don't advertise it either. So the three massive red flags of this history were Noel Mulisa's betrayal and the absolute bloodbath that followed to crush the uprising. And the wildest part, Quinoan, an Imperial Guard instructor, has completely mastered this forbidden technique. Luca connects the final dots. Did the captain bring him here because he thinks Luca is secretly working with these traitors? So what do you and I make of this? Quinoan claps, confirming the trap, daring him to prove he isn't tied to Nemesis. Stick with me, Quinoan, just promised Luca one last chance to breathe if he actually finds that evidence. Totally confused by the guy's weird vibe, Luca still insists this instructor has zero connection to them. But Quinoan fires back. The captain disagrees. He actually dares Luca to go check out his old stomping grounds down below. Smiling, Quinoan promises this little field trip will totally help him out. Now Luca is sweating, wondering just how much the captain knew before tossing him to the wolves. Heading out the door, Luca announces he's taking all this straight to the Centurion captain. Quinoan just casually waves goodbye to the kid. Sunset hits. Luca walks alone across the bridge, and the camera pulls way back, showing off the massive Imperial city at dusk. He stops at the edge of the roof, just staring out at the horizon. Looking seriously annoyed, he realizes these guys are basically treating his life like a massive joke. He's just a tiny chess piece caught between two absolute monsters, totally unsure if he's going to survive this insane crossfire. He finally admits the truth: Quinoan is impossible to read. Now he desperately needs to figure out who this guy really is. Now watch closely. After finding absolute zero on Noel Melissa, he decides he can't just keep failing like this. The only real option left: take the bait. He decides to hunt for traces of Quinoan straight down in the city's lower sectors. He remembers Himmlis ordering him to spy on Quinoan, a literal suspected traitor just wandering around free. So why did the suspect tell him to go look at his old marks down below, especially promising him it would actually help? Luca suddenly realizes this little tip is dragging him straight into the deadly slums where the Nemesis gang operates. Basically, this whole setup screams one big giant loyalty test. A twisted game between the Empire and Quinoan just to test him. With zero chance of backing out, Luca gears up to follow the trail. He knows perfectly well that surviving this place is going to take insane caution. Easy, not even close. Right after Luca marches straight to Himmless to report the whole mess. He flat out admits his target totally provoked him. Standing before the commander, he leaks the connection between Qin Yuan and Rick Kaiser, demanding to know why this guy walks free. Even so, Luca swears he'll follow orders even if they keep him totally in the dark. After a long pause, Himmless stares him down and actually says he trusts him. Then comes the bombshell. The higher-ups ordered his investigation, thinking Luca is the ultimate key to stopping Nemesis. Shocked, Luca asks why they'd keep such a lethal guy around as a teacher. Himmless casually replies, "It's the only way to keep Qin Yuan on a leash," asking if that finally clears things up. I know what you're thinking. How is Qin Yuan so calm? The guy's insane self-control literally leaves zero openings. Himmless pushes him to keep going, dropping the fact that countless soldiers already failed this. But Luca, he's the only one making actual progress. Plus, Himmless smirks. The instructor actually kinda likes him. Shooting his shot, Luca asks for something way beyond the pay grade of a normal soldier in training. Cut to a crazy fast transport pod dropping from the sky. Inside, Himmless and Luca are sitting face to face. On the way down, Himmless just straight up asks if he's nervous. Honestly, Luca says he'd be totally lying if he said no. He flashes back to his massive request, getting an absolute free pass to travel between the upper and lower levels. Not just that, but full clearance to carry weapons and a blank check for his investigation. This VIP pass even unlocks highly restricted files normally blocked for low-level guys. But even with the ultimate cheat codes, it's deadly out there. He has to play this perfectly. Sitting there, Luca admits he's totally terrified of getting assassinated just for knowing way too much. Brutally honest, Himmless confirms it if the higher-ups want to cover up. Luca is 100% dead meat. But surprisingly, Himmless vows to use all his commander privileges to keep the kid breathing. He then hands over a glowing family card projecting a super rare authorization seal. Grabbing it, Luca realizes his entire life now rests with the commander realizing this guy is far from normal. Himmless then tells him to go greet his brand new family. Luca asks how to act, and the answer is simple. Just act totally natural to motivate Himmless's kids. But that word motivation, yeah, that leaves Luca sweating about his real plans. Without a single clue what the boss is actually plotting, Luca knows he just has to play along. It's all just to survive. Almost there now. And trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Stick with me, watch this transport capsule speed right toward that massive building. Looking around, Himmless straight up admits this cold place is hard to love. But get this, as they pull up, he drops a bomb. He actually grew up right here. The capsule finally touches down safely on the platform. Seconds later, Himmless and Luca step into this crazy, luxurious, heavily decorated hall. Himmless tells Luca to go get some rest, first promising that all the boring formal introductions can wait. Up at the window, Luca watches a whole crowd of elites gathering down below. Down there, Himmless takes center stage, soaking up every single bit of attention. Luca smirks, noting that these high society politics feel exactly like the trashy lower sectors. He starts wondering if this rich life is really what he wanted. Suddenly, a weird noise from the bedroom door makes him snap his head around. Giselle walks right in, declaring Luca is officially a Castori now. She steps up and actually apologizes for her earlier attitude, admitting her behavior was a total disgrace to the family. Luca stays perfectly calm, brushing it off. He says any normal civilian would freak out like that. She drops a sad detail. Next, she visited Felix, and he did not even recognize her. Luca tells her not to sweat it. Felix was just doing his job. And no, he makes it very clear he is not just trying to be comforting here. Smiling, Giselle calls him a unique flame, one that burns way brighter than all the rest. Right after she asks if he remembers her big promise to help him out once he officially joined. He nods fast, totally agreeing. This ruthless mindset is exactly how a real imperial noble should act to claim their prize. Stepping back, she offers up some extremely valuable intel as her first form of payment. Now, pay attention here because she fires up a hologram of his new brothers. She warns that their father will not help and he needs to watch out for these two. She explains his sudden arrival has the other heirs sweating bullets. The Castorias are pure military blood. The other heirs, massively flawed. But Luca is an elite soldier, making him an absolute nightmare for their succession plans. He totally agrees. It makes perfect sense those brothers would be terrified of losing their golden status to an outsider like him. But then he flips the script and questions her directly. Her face completely drops. He straight up asks if she wants to be the family head, but she quickly dodges that heavy question. The heiress claims she wants zero part in this war. But make no mistake, if they provoke her, she will absolutely strike back. She coldly warns him that waiting around is a death sentence. She tells him to grab every single opportunity he can. Smiling back, the soldier throws that exact same advice right in his new sister's face. Giselle just stares at him in pure shock. A second later, she absolutely loses it, busting out laughing. Catching her breath, she looks at him and asks if he will back her up someday. With a smirk, he agrees to support her as long as it does not drag him down. Reaching out for a handshake, she locks in their alliance. She wishes her new brother good luck, but immediately warns him this is the very last time she will ever use that word. He laughs and agrees, saying it would honestly be super weird to hear that anyway. Dinner bells suddenly echo through the halls. Standing right in front of the family crest, their secret alliance is officially locked in. Down in the massive dining hall, the rest of the Twisted family is already waiting. We all know family dinners can be rough, but watch this. The doors swing open, revealing the firstborn Nicholas, the second son Joel, and the cold matriarch Eva Castoria. The matriarch locks eyes with the newcomer, giving a fake welcome, and claiming she has heard plenty. The young man stays stone cold, staring right back at the woman ruling this house. Eva finally tells everyone to take a seat, noting her husband will be arriving very soon. Before sitting, Giselle whispers a quick warning. Do not let her mother get under his skin because their father will never save him from family drama. On cue, Himelis walks into the room and the entire table goes dead silent instantly. The untouchable head of the house casually tells everyone they can start eating. But before grabbing a bite, Himelis gives a super formal prayer to humanity's protector, ending it by honoring the very first emperor of the empire. Right after that weird flex, everybody else starts digging in. Mid-bite, the young man watches the family dynamic play out. He quickly realizes every single eye is glued to him. Now the scene flashes back a few minutes to when he and Giselle were chatting in the hall. Giselle was just explaining how the brothers feeling so threatened totally proves their greedy ambition. So what do you and I make of this? Those two have already studied his entire file. Ava spills the tea. Nicholas is a bureaucrat with tons of allies because he totally sucks at actual combat. Then there is Joel. He might lack raw skill, but he is the Finally, Ava gave Luca a serious warning, watch his back, because those brothers will look for any excuse to provoke him. Stick with me here, because you and I are about to watch the most intense family dinner ever. Serving his food, Luca remembered Ava's advice, finally realizing why his brothers were glaring at him. Playing it cool, Luca just quietly started cutting his steak. Glancing across the table, Luca noticed Himelis was just sitting there. The family head finally raised his fork, declaring out loud that he absolutely needed to surpass his own father's massive expectations. Meanwhile, Ava, the commander's daughter, quietly ate her food while the maids kept a super close eye on her. Right after that, Luca shoved his steak down with absolute intensity. Smirking, Joel finally broke the heavy silence and called out Luca's name. Luca immediately dropped his fork and locked eyes with him, waiting to see what this guy's problem was. Joel instantly started scolding him, claiming he really hated bringing this stuff up during their very first family dinner. He ripped into Luca's terrible table manners, loudly questioning how anyone could survive this long without knowing basic high society etiquette. While taking the heat, Luca just analyzed Joel's loudmouth energy and the eerie silence of the oldest son, Nicholas. Reading the room, Luca quickly realized Nicholas was the real snake here. That was the guy to watch out for. Joel kept pushing directly, asking if a guy with 0 medals in 10 years even deserved the mighty Castoria name. With that heavy insult hanging there, Luca casually looked around, thinking hard about the actual reputation of this family. In response, Luca just leaned forward and stared dead at Joel. Watch closely, you will love this. Luca completely flipped the script, challenging Joel to test his actual combat skills instead of crying about fancy dinner etiquette. Caught completely off guard, Joel freaked out, gripping his steak knife like he was ready to strike. Before someone got stabbed, Himelis suddenly stepped in, barking an order for both boys to stop right away. Trying to save face, the second son, Joel, panicked, claiming he was just teaching his new brother a friendly lesson. But Himelis just scolded Joel bluntly, asking if he seriously hadn't realized Luca already knew proper etiquette. Himelis exposed the truth. Luca was just faking it the whole time. He questioned Luca directly, but instead of replying, our main character just smugly chewed his piece of meat. Swallowing his food, Luca threw them a fake smile, casually claiming he just made a tiny mistake. He totally played the innocent victim, saying his hands were shaking because it was his first time in such a ridiculously fancy place. Hearing that obvious lie made Joel's face twitch in pure rage. Right on cue, Nicholas jumped in loudly, congratulating his new brother Luca on earning the super rare 7th-ranked crossed sword medal. Playing the nice guy, Nicholas sighed about not being a soldier himself, but claimed he was so happy Dad finally found a real warrior like Luca. Joel instantly snapped at Nicholas, taking that backhanded compliment as a direct insult about his own crappy military skills. Always, the politician Nicholas calmly backed off, swearing it was a misunderstanding and promising he fully believed Joel would do great things someday. Jumping into the chaos, Luca nodded, claiming he totally understood feeling bad over a very similar situation. He explained that his old commanders were terrified of his dad, so they actively avoided sending him into real combat zones. The argument kept spiraling, and the deadly tension between the brothers cranked up to 1,000 while everyone just watched. You and I both saw that coming, right? As the family drama spilled out like old scars, Luca realized this chaotic showdown was exactly what Himelis secretly wanted. Looking at the commander's stoic face, Luca knew for a fact his new dad was absolutely loving this inside. Luckily, Ava stepped in to end the fight, smoothing things out so the tense dinner could turn into a peaceful party. During the big event, Ava took charge as the matriarch, formally introducing our guy to all the guests as Luca Castoria, the newest family member. A few brave guests nervously approached him to chat, fully aware that this kid was dangerous after watching him completely humiliate Joel at dinner. After double-checking some crucial intel with Giselle, Luca's totally exhausting first day with the wild Castoria family finally wrapped up. Back in his room, a sudden chilling realization put Luca on high alert. Out of nowhere, a dark silhouette materialized right at the door. Stepping closer to the bed, Himmler quietly asked if Luca was still awake. The war veteran apologized for sneaking in so late, but gave a stern warning Luca had to stay strictly neutral in this family's war. As he dropped this heavy advice, the family head casually sank down into a velvet armchair, swirling a glass of alcohol. Luca looked shocked, pointing out that booze absolutely wrecks the nervous system needed for high-level combat. Himmler chuckled and offered a pour, but our boy rejected it, claiming mastering RC's system was stressful enough. So what do you and I learn from this? Taking a sip, the commander dropped some veteran wisdom sometimes. Surviving hell requires embracing a little impurity yourself. Let's dive right in. Luca directly questions Hima about needing impurity, especially since he just called it the ultimate key to humanity. A single sweat drop slides down his face. He knows people with that wild mindset get devoured by the Legion first. Luca straight up calls him drunk, but Hima just smiles, calling this twisted advice a welcoming gift to the family. Standing up, the family head casually reminds our guy that they are not on a battlefield. Go find a hobby, kid. He drops a heavy hand on Luca's shoulder. Advice delivered, Hima simply turns his back and walks right out. Left completely alone, Luca is confused. How is he supposed to chase impurities when just improving is hard enough? Does the commander actually want him acting like Kinuan, especially knowing that wild emotions are exactly what cause deadly irregularities? Standing up himself, Luca just cannot believe a Centurion leader would actually spout such insane things. This weird impurity talk totally exposed a hidden strange side of Hima he had never witnessed. He figures it is just totally useless advice, like Hima is awkwardly trying to play the normal dad role. Day 2, at the Castoria estate. He tags along with Giselle for a tour, secretly plotting out his own agenda. Watch this next part closely. Giselle unlocks a massive door, and as it slides open, a blinding light hits Luca's face. An absolutely massive building-sized arsenal reveals itself right in front of him. He asks if she runs this place. She casually flexes her hardcore engineering studies as an answer. She explains weapons maintenance is a sacred tradition for the family women. Her mom leads and she is next in line. Walking through, he jokes, she does not look like a grease monkey. Then she drops details about the matriarch's legendary skills. He just listens quietly while she doubles down on this hardcore family tradition. This entire arsenal, it proves the absolute raw power of the Castorias. Giselle calls out, but he is already ahead, totally captivated by something under a spotlight. An imposing combat robot dominates the room. Getting closer, he spots endless battle scars and serious repair marks all over its metallic body. Then it hits him, the right arm is way bigger than the left. Definitely modded to carry some insanely heavy weapon. Giselle walks up smiling, asking if that absolute beast caught his eye. She reveals it is the legendary Sela armor, a literal relic passed down from an ancient ancestor. I know you are thinking it is outdated, but this armor is their ultimate treasure. That epic robot is permanently burned into his memory. Later on, walking with Hima, he asks why the family elders live so ridiculously far. Hima makes it clear elders advise, but a family head is never a puppet. Boom, destination reached. They finally halt right in front of the massive, incredibly intimidating Silver Palace structure. Walking in, Hima explains there are exactly 7 elders. Just surviving long enough to become one proves their insane worth. So Luca straight up asks how many of them hate his adoption. 2 against 4, silent 1 in favor. Hima shrugs it off, he usually gets what he wants, so ignore the haters. He casually mentions the giant structure is way tougher than it looks. They walk down the endless hallway in dead silence. Arriving at a massive door, Hima activates the hand scanner. A ridiculously huge room filled with a thick, creepy fog opens up. Ghostly voices echo from the mist, demanding to know why the kid is there. Hand on shoulder, Hima formally introduces him. Looming from their thrones, the elders aggressively judge his actual chances of surviving. Suddenly, one creepy voice orders him closer. Luca steps forward into the thick fog, totally alone. With a single hand wave, the elder forces him closer. The intense pressure clearly hits his sweating face. He finally stops, standing just inches away from one imposing throne. Lightning fast, the elder grabs his face. He wishes him long life, telling him to devour the chaos, do not let it sweep him away. Then the elder drops a cryptic line about invisible things surrounding him. With that creepy hand still grabbing his face, he calmly says he understands. Then he simply turns and walks off. They immediately pivot to succession politics, with one cranky elder demanding the kid leave the room first. Hima stands beside him, perfectly silent. Then he drops a bomb. The kid is allowed to stay. That massive display of raw trust shocks him, defeated one elder size, and finally allows the secret meeting to continue. Leaving the palace under the night sky, yeah, we are about to see things get wild. Alright, you and I are about to witness some peak family drama. Walking together, Luca broke the silence, asking why he could stay. Hima just turned around, said he would figure it out himself. Just like that, his final day in this crazy house was approaching. Getting ready to pack up, he opened his bedroom door one last time, but his exit got totally blocked by a wild surprise. This kid literally pointed a gun right at him, asking if he dodges bullets. Alio, the son of Hima, stared him down with zero sense of danger. Luca warned him to drop the weapon, but Alio just laughed, totally mocking his background and trying to get a rise out of him. Luca, not even flinching. Flash Alio actually pulled the trigger, while Luca simply sidestepped out of the way. The bullet smashed into the wall behind him, leaving a smoke trail. Totally shocked, Alio actually yelled that he wasn't supposed to dodge it. Before the brat could even blink, Luca dashed forward and snatched the gun away. Watch closely, you, and I know he won't hold back. Luca just kicked Alio downstairs, leaving him crying desperately. Walking away, he told the kid to go tattle to his dad. Gun in hand, Luca smirked, telling him to say his uncle tried to kill him. Right on cue, Nicholas came sprinting down the hallway, screaming for his boy Alio. Seeing his dad, Alio wailed even louder. From up top, Luca just stood there watching the whole pathetic scene unfold. The housemaids watched from far away, totally staying out of it. Grabbing his son, Nicholas glared up at the stairs. He shouted Luca by name, demanding to know what the hell just happened. Right in front of everyone, Luca calmly said he was disciplining Alio for aiming a gun at an adult. He hoped the kid learned his lesson. Hearing that, Nicholas whipped around to his crying son, asking if he actually pulled a weapon. Realizing what happened, Nicholas looked super annoyed at his kid, but then instantly snapped back to a calm face. But Luca cut right in. He asked if Nicholas would really ignore an attempted murder. Nicholas quickly suggested taking this off the record. The two men walked off to a private room to chat. Inside, Luca just waited quietly. The second Nicholas took a seat, he looked right at him, dropping the pleasantries. Nicholas casually joked that people outside probably thought they were brawling. Luca hit back, accusing him of using his own son to cover up their secret alliance, noting the insane risks. But Luca, he coldly stated that he could always just make another son later. Waving his hand, Luca called the whole gun thing a minor issue. Then Nicholas dropped a bomb he already knew about the alliance with Giselle. We both see the wild mind games happening here. Luca warned that backing Giselle gives Jupe the throne. Nicholas confessed his life would be over if Jupe took charge. Sitting there, Luca just soaked in every single word quietly. Here is the twist. Jupe actually had crazy strong backing and totally viewed Luca as a massive roadblock to his power. Nicholas sighed, complaining that neither of them had the overwhelming godlike power of Hima. Luca fired right back. Why stress over someone with zero real abilities? Nicholas totally struggled to come up with a straight answer. Turns out Jupe's military past won over half the family. Plus, some elders actually wanted a weak puppet leader instead of an overpowered monster like Hima. Everything clicked for Luca. Hima was so insanely strong that the scared family members specifically wanted someone weak in charge. Flashing back to the elders meeting, Luca realized what being a real leader meant in this crazy clan. Putting it all together, Luca bluntly asked what Nicholas wanted from him. The truth, Nicholas desperately needed a fake enemy to boost his own popularity scores. Then it clicked. The entire setup, even risking his own kid's life, was a perfectly planned trap just for this chat. Giselle's warning echoed. Nicholas was dangerously close to Hima. Standing up, Nicholas hoped they had a deal, but Luca dropped an unexpected question. What if Luca leveled up so much that he completely outgrew the whole successor position altogether? Not even looking back, Nicholas smoothly claimed that even god-tier power needs a solid ally to actually keep the throne. Flashing a razor-sharp smirk, Luca made it totally clear he wasn't joking around. Turning around, Nicholas chuckled, remembering how he used to think rich nobles never had any real-life problems. As Nicholas left, Luca offered a hand, throwing in a reminder that his own rank in the house was literally rock bottom. For the final play, he tossed out that Luca could snitch this entire secret chat to Giselle to keep up appearances. Yelling from the doorway, Nicholas mocked him, "Play the special boy all you want, but earning the Castori name won't be that easy." So what do you and I make of this? Standing alone, Luca silently planned out his next crazy move. Alright, jump in with me, we are cutting straight to Luca and Hima traveling. In uniform, Luca stared intensely at a family crest card. Right beside him, Commander Himela was busy tapping away at a glowing holographic data panel. The veteran Hima glanced over and asked if Luca actually cared about the family. Luca just brushed it off as nothing special. Honestly, the kid looked completely exhausted from zero sleep lately. He flashed back to busting his tail at the family estate. Seeing Hima as a soft family guy totally clashed with the strict commander Luca knew. Still holding that card, Luca's little trip down memory lane got rudely interrupted. A weird glitchy shadow popped onto the screen system hack. Seconds later, the whole transport started shaking like crazy. Bam! A massive hit smashed right into the transport, throwing them totally off course. Panicking, Luca realized they were being hijacked. But Hima, completely chill. The guy didn't even blink, just telling Luca to relax. The old man casually dropped that they already planned for this ambush. Yep, a bunch of traitors were waiting right at their destination. Hima checked the time backup was 10 minutes away. They just had to survive until the cavalry showed up. Hearing that, Luca grabbed his gun, totally ready to fight. But hold on, watch this. Himela said they were ditching the ride so they wouldn't be sitting ducks, completely shocking the kid. But then it clicked. Obviously a guy in Himela's rank knew exactly how to pilot. Without even blinking, the commander grabbed the controls and popped the emergency exit. He calmly promised Luca the car would absorb the massive drop. Free falling straight toward the ground, Hima randomly shouted a question at the kid. Right in midair, he asked how Luca liked the view. Luca just screamed back that Hima was acting as human bait. Hima just smiled and confirmed it. All of this was just so Barbara could earn Nemesis's trust. Seconds later, the commander yelled to brace for impact. Luca just screamed Barbara's name right as they smashed into the dirt. Boom! Fire and black smoke everywhere. Out of nowhere, the heavy metal door was just violently kicked wide open. Coughing through the dust, Luca crawled out of the wreckage alive. Staring at this empty wasteland, Luca panicked. How could they survive 10 minutes with zero cover anywhere? Gripping the kid's shoulder, Hima warned that the bad guys definitely saw the crash and were coming. Luca nervously followed his commander's stare right toward the horizon. Luca's eye lit up, he was locked in. Meanwhile, miles above, a silent space station orbited the planet. Down below, they could clearly see a massive enemy wave charging straight in. Snatching his massive weapon, the veteran smirked about the perfect weather, standing tall and totally ready to fight. Powering up, Himela muttered he was finally bringing out the big guns. Flash, he fired an absolutely massive beam, completely erasing everything ahead. You and I both know what that means. Luca realized they didn't need any backup plans at all. The old man played bait because he knew he could solo this whole army. He told Luca to watch closely. Class was officially in session. Staring at the smoking crater, Himela sighed, annoyed that some enemies actually survived that. He calmly told Luca his targeting system would lock onto every survivor in exactly 21 seconds. Bam! Another brutal shot fired off, turning the wasteland into absolute ash. Taking cover, the young guy was mind-blown. How was he hitting them when they were not even in sight? Luca guessed the boss was using satellite coordinates to aim, and yep, he hit the nail on the head. Himela bragged that as the Centurion leader, he gets a personal military satellite just for fun. He added that running a toy like that usually takes massive computer systems. But this absolute legend was running it all inside his head, just a casual flex of a Centurion leader. Whoosh! Himela casually dodged a stray bullet. Both noticed the enemy wave closing in extremely fast now. A massive horde of bad guys burst through the smoke, screaming their heads off when they spotted the duo. A cyborg soldier screamed to focus all fire on Himela and erase him completely. Right above, an enemy sniper was already lining up a deadly headshot. The sniper pulled the trigger, but Himela just smiled casually, saying he would handle the trash himself. Hima then gave Luca one simple job: just don't die. The kid instantly complained that was way too vague. Laughing, Hima told him if he wanted to rank up, he had better learn to read between the lines real fast. His voice echoed out, warning the kid that this crazy world was never going to hold his hand. So what do we learn here? Luca's in real trouble because a hooded enemy just deflected his bullets with a sword. Alright, you and I are jumping right into the chaos. Watch this enemy charge at Hela's full speed. But Halas, he just smirks. The veteran spins around, totally ready to counter this guy. He becomes an absolute blur on the battlefield, launching himself straight into the mob waiting for him. Boom, one insane whirlwind strike wipes out every single enemy around him. The commander gives a seriously satisfied grin. Meanwhile, Luca watches this crazy flex, bionic eye glowing. He knows he should be taking notes right now, but staying alive is kind of the priority here. That is when it hits him. Halas definitely did not come here to babysit or protect him. As an enemy rushes him, Luca remembers the harsh truth. This world is absolutely not going to go easy on anyone. His mechanical eye locks on scanning targets like a video game. Bang! One of the traitors drops instantly from a headshot. No time to celebrate. Luca fights for his life as another guy fires right at him. Getting totally serious, Luca notices something wild. His attacker actually manages to dodge just like he does. This seriously makes him wonder. Can these traitors use advanced moves too? Now pay attention here. Watch closely as Luca proves fighting without a proper body is his actual power, but a catch still remains. Going totally on the offensive, Luca decides he has to at least try. He grabs the attacker's arm, leaving the guy completely baffled. Then with one quick strike, Luca drops the confused enemy forever. He realizes his crazy move only worked because of surprise. A real pro would have sliced his arm off. Taking a breath, he processes the absolute madness. Standing over a mountain of bodies, he watches Halas finish the very last guy. As they group up, Halis casually looks over and asks if the warm-up is over. The veteran bluntly states that Rick is just waiting for battle damage to finish him off. Luca asks why they didn't just ambush Rick instead. Halis shuts that down. Capturing Rick would not stop the main villain, puts Barbara in danger, and honestly just wastes everyone's time. Then Halis drops a bomb. He calls himself completely replaceable. Luca is stunned, unable to imagine a top commander being treated like trash. Walking away from the carnage, Luca asks if anyone is actually irreplaceable. Halis just points one finger at a massive structure far off. Yep, only one single person matters. While Luca stares at the giant building, the commander mentions that Luca knows this VIP very well. Luca goes completely quiet, processing this massive reality check. Let that sink in for a second. As long as that VIP is safe, everyone else can die. We both know that absolutely shatters his confidence. Even with that dark truth hanging over him heading toward the protected structure, Luca reminds himself he still belongs to the Empire. Stepping into the massive main hall under the Empire banner, literally everyone stares at him. He walks straight through, face dead serious, feeling every single eyeball tracking his every move. The ID card he holds proves his new family status. 2 recruits start whispering, wondering how he scored the elite Castoria name. Another group gossips that even with the captain liking him, an actual adoption is insane. Sure, to everyone else it looks like a miracle, but for Luca it feels super awkward. Suddenly Giselle walks right past him, dropping something on the floor with a quick apology. Luca steps on the dropped item. He teamed up with Halis to avoid being disposable, but staring at that card, his goal feels like a total joke. Standing alone in a sea of people, he accepts the harsh reality. Unmasking Kinuan is going to cost him everything. So he makes his choice. He will grind endlessly until that fateful day finally arrives. Time for action. He boots up a crazy combat simulation, targets flashing everywhere around him. Sweating through brutal training, he blocks every single strike. His life becomes non-stop combat while wild sci-fi machines monitor his tired body. Whenever a cycle ends, robotic arms do their weird surgical stuff while he rests. The metal arms keep working, literally upgrading his physical body while a screen tracks his heartbeat. Getting up after the whole process, he checks out the insane physical buffs he gained. A giant box of burnt-out parts next to him shows less than a year of training is left. With time ticking, he knows he has to visit the lower sector soon. But the dream remains the same. Become an elite Imperial Guard. Meanwhile, the camera cuts over to Ile, standing outside a ridiculously huge Imperial building. Cutting back to the base, Luca casually walks down a hallway toward the bathroom. He hears cadets calling Ile's smiling ambition totally twisted. Luca steps up asking what happened, and that is where we leave it. Trust me, you want answers next. Alright, you and I are jumping right in. Eli just crushed his brother. A cadet mentioned he was likely just here for a psych test. Yep, his long-awaited return is officially confirmed. The wall plaque right there proved it. Eli Kartika was totally absent until this exact moment. Sitting alone on the stairs, Luca thought about it. Eli literally fought for that title even though he never cared about power before. Looking dead serious, Luca realized his friend was still hurting. Then the memories hit Lily and Ramona dying. Despite giving it absolutely everything, Eli still lost her in the end. The image of a firing gun flashed right through Luca's mind. He stayed frozen on those stairs, remembering the worst part: she died by Eli's own hands. Suddenly, the heavy silence broke when someone called his name. It was Eli smiling down from above. He walked over joking that he was touched and asking if he should start calling him Lucas now. Luca quickly shut that down. Just Luca. Eli said he needed a second to drop off his backpack. Luca nodded, watching his old friend walk off with a tiny relieved smile. Once they caught up, Luca brought up the crazy rumor about him usurping his brother. Eli waved it off as a formal duel. He only won because his brother couldn't handle trash talk. Naturally, Luca had to ask what exactly he did. You saw that coming, right? Eli just smirked and said he seduced the guy's crush because he is obviously way too handsome. Eli pretended to feel bad, but Luca just deadpanned that guy is absolute trash. Flipping the script, Eli asked how the Castoria family accepted Luca without any real fight. Luca shrugged. His whole life felt like walking a dangerous tightrope, so this was basically Tuesday for him. Eli listened, then offered some surprisingly good advice. Even a juggler drops the ball, but the show always goes on. Then Eli stood right up, calling Luca's name to make sure he was listening. Looking him dead in the eye, Luca swore he was done running away. Eli instantly asked if a certain girl sparked this change. Luca denied it, explaining his master plan, gaining absolute power, was the only way to fix his family and the Empire. He went totally quiet, locked in, and absolutely convinced. Seeing that fire, Eli knew his friend's insane potential. Once Luca made up his mind like that, nobody could ever stop him. Luca pivoted officially, welcoming him back, while warning that Eli better start pulling his weight. They just stood there, carrying heavy burdens and massive ambitions. Reaching out his hand, Eli suggested they team up and grind together. It was their destiny. They locked hands in a firm grip. Luca was officially all in. Eli pulled him up. Now Luca just had to survive that tightrope walk, especially since his partner had already proven he was an absolute beast. Taking a glass elevator down, Luca stared out at the glowing massive cyberpunk city. Now, pay attention, because the vibe completely changes here. Luca heads into the shady lower city passing guards until he finds two injured guys bleeding in an alley. Suddenly his hologram screen popped up, dialing Gabriel for backup. While Luca looked ahead, one of those bleeding men quietly stood up. Out of nowhere, a mechanical hand lunged straight for Luca's waist. Boom! Luca ruthlessly ripped the guy's metal arm clean off while he screamed. The pathetic attacker stumbled away in a panic, and Luca just let him run. Smirking like a menace, Luca joked he was finally feeling at home. Then he checked his screen, getting annoyed that Gabriel was ignoring his calls. Stepping into a sketchy room, he froze right at the doorway for a second. His eyes locked onto a dark shape on the messy floor. Seeing Gabriel's unmoving body lying there, Luca instantly figured out why he missed the call. The dude was dead. But miraculously, Gabriel forced his eyes open, groaning that he wasn't dead just yet. The elevator doors slid open, dropping Luca into a gritty industrial hallway. Looking super focused, he marched right to his destination. Moments later, we see him testing out a slick new weapon wired to his cyborg arm. The crazy blacksmith turned around, proudly showing off his custom prosthesis and demanding feedback. Grabbing the shiny new sword, Luca praised the firm grip and how it synced perfectly with the arm, though it needed a slight strength tweak. Without even getting clear instructions, this genius craftsman forged the absolute perfect combat weapon. Luca revealed the blade's epic name, Cruxus. In the ancient language, that literally means calamity. He also showed off his pistol, Ruena, which straight up means destruction. Joking that feminine names needed a little extra charm, our weapon-wielding hero promised to put them to extremely good use. The blacksmith cheered as he left. Trust me, we definitely want to see this arsenal in action. Let's jump into it. Holding his new weapon, Luca knew his current skills wouldn't cut it against a stronger enemy. His old gear completely trashed in the last fight. It didn't help him at all. Shortly after, he tracks down Gabriel. The guy is lying in a hospital bed, absolutely covered in bandages, while Luca just stands there silently watching him. Gabriel admits he took 2 bullets, one to the chest, another to the gut, meaning the attackers weren't actually trying to end his life. When Luca asks what went down, Gabriel explains it was just a warning. Every gang in the area is beefing up their muscle. They shot him just to send a message. Luca straight up asks why Gabriel doesn't just join a crew to stay alive. Gabriel snaps back. He'd much rather die than become someone's lapdog. Switching topics, he asks why Luca is even here after all this time. Sitting back, Luca gives a super vague answer about needing to handle some business. Getting up to leave, Luca promises to drop by tomorrow. He tells Gabriel to actually take his meds and get his strength back. Gabriel keeps protesting, trying to grab his attention, but Luca just ignores him and walks away. Outside, massive glowing holograms and bright city lights totally dominate the skyline. Blending into the crowd, Luca watches floating info panels everywhere. Seeing guards stationed around the hospital, he figures Gabriel is safe for the moment. With his contact secure, Luca shifts his focus to the next major clue. The intel he got from Quinwan points straight to the former manager of the Coliseum. To track him down, Luca needs to dig up the manager's past actions. He is absolutely certain the answers he needs are hiding in that history. But honestly, what would a guy like the manager even be doing in a sketchy place like this? From up high, Luca stares down at the deeply divided city. Then he slowly climbs the stairs of a broken-down spot that feels completely devoid of hope. Standing right under the harsh streetlights, he tries to figure out his target's real motive. Massive fish holograms float silently as he walks the alleyway. Suddenly, a flashback hits hard, freezing him in his tracks. He stares at an old rundown building. It suddenly hits him purely out of muscle memory. He had wandered straight back to the exact neighborhood where he grew up. Shaking it off, Luca hurries down another totally empty, silent street. Turning the corner, he catches 2 shady guys chatting next to a vehicle. Watch closely, this is where it gets personal. Hiding, Luca hears them complaining about the director, while skinny kids watch from a nearby window. The oldest kid definitely knows the director is scamming them, but they are way too weak to fight back. Seeing this, Luca realizes the world doesn't just magically fix itself. Even if he steps in right now, the relief for these orphans won't last long. At best, things might get better for a couple of months before slipping right back into total misery. Suddenly, the 2 guys spot Luca lurking there and aggressively demand to know what he wants. One thug barks at him to get lost. Luca just sighs, realizing he's honestly gotten way too soft. But hey, that is reason enough to interfere. The orphanage director suddenly recognizes Luca and frantically tells his guard to back off. Dodging a sloppy punch, Luca casually mentions that the young punk actually managed to become a guard. He drops the guard to the floor easily, joking that he already has more than enough money anyway. Panicking, the director starts begging. He reminds Luca how he always treated him well, even giving him extra food rations. Luca grabs him by the collar, glaring cold. That is the exact reason he hasn't snapped his neck yet. You and I both know Luca isn't buying those fake tears. The terrified director begs for forgiveness, asking what he did wrong. Luca coldly replies he was just passing through and got annoyed. He ignores the director's pathetic apologies and empty promises that it won't happen again. The director swears he will become a completely new man, but Luca just stands there staring in dead silence. Thinking of those skinny kids trying to smile at the window, his mind is instantly made up. Bam! Luca delivers an absolutely massive punch to the director's face. Adjusting his hood over the unconscious body, he warns him to feed those kids properly tomorrow. With that settled, Luca turns around and fades back into the dark alleyway. Later, he meets up with Gabriel, who is loudly whining about his painful bullet wounds. Gabriel keeps yelling that he got shot twice, while Luca just tells him to shut up and stop being so dramatic. Reflecting on the night, Luca casually admits that only a good sleep stopped him from completely shattering that orphanage director's legs. Beating up someone he despises, actually pretty great for his mental health. He wonders if that was the whole point. A few moments later, the duo finally arrives right outside a massive building known as the Colosseum. And that's where we leave it. A guard stops them, asking Gabriel about the shots, since he has no fight scheduled. Stick with me here. Gabriel straight up tells the guard their real business is with his buddy Luca, not him. Right away, the security guard recognizes Luca as Good Boy, the absolute beast who wiped out his entire race. Ignoring that crazy detail, the guard radios in that Gabriel and Good Boy are here to see Alf. Then he leads them right upstairs. Upstairs, Alf welcomes them in. He already knows the rumors and casually asks if Gabriel is okay after getting shot. Luca jokes about his buddy being so famous, but Gabriel snaps back, asking how Luca thinks he even survived. Without missing a beat, Alf calls Luca Good Boy. But Luca shuts that down fast. He demands his real name and immediately asks about his teacher. Alf offers a fight, but Luca rejects it, saying he wants to talk privately. Alf refuses, though claiming he is terrible at fighting and literally needs these goons for protection. The ex-fighter just laughs that off, bragging that these bodyguards are basically just ants to him. The Colosseum boss warns Luca not to get too cocky just because he can throw a punch, saying he crossed the line. In response, Luca flashes a smirk and tells Alf to just obey. Alf snaps his cigarette in half and calls him Good Boy again. Luca just sighs, reminding him to use his real name. Now watch closely as the guards charge. Luca just casually turns to Gabriel and tells him to shut the door. The goons open fire, forcing Gabriel to act as a human meat shield. Meanwhile, Luca literally hangs from the ceiling, waiting them out. Standing by the door, Gabriel starts screaming at Luca to just finish this already. Jumping down, the enemies aim their guns right at Luca, but one completely misses and shoots his own guy. Luca just crosses his arms and instantly wipes out the two henchmen. Watching this, Alf finally admits his security is trash. Later on, heavy rain starts pouring over the city and its glowing holograms. Water drips down an old industrial building. Inside, Gabriel is whining about his aching body while Gilda patches him up. Gilda totally mocks Luca, asking if he forgot his body is not waterproof, getting a super sarcastic reply. Staring out at the pouring rain, Luca admits that the deal with Alf actually went perfectly. Turns out his famous last name was the ultimate cheat code during that intense negotiation. The Colosseum boss figured out he was Lucas Castoria, son of the Imperial Guard captain. Realizing the stakes, Alf asked what he wanted. Luca just wanted info on whoever killed the former Colosseum leader, which is honestly a super common event in these rough streets. But Luca made it crystal clear he wanted every single tiny detail, no matter what. You and I both saw Alf acting tough, but get this, he literally offered to become his servant. Luca points out that when he becomes an adult next year, he can legally have one. But Alf has to prove himself first. Reading over the report, Luca interrupts, realizing this will give him clues about Kinuan. Then Gabriel completely misses the point, complaining about paying for upgrades when his limbs are already waterproof. The mechanic explains that the coating wears off over time, especially with the acid rain needing updates every 6 months. Gabriel groans about the ridiculous price tag, swearing he never had to pay this before. Gilda warns him about his parts breaking down, but Gabriel just calls it normal aging. Gilda tells them to stop acting broke. Without a single word, Luca drops a chip paying for everything, including Gabriel's new body parts. Grabbing the money chip, Gilda smiles and thanks Luca for always coming to the rescue. Gabriel tries to warn him about trusting Gilda, but Luca just tells him to shut his clueless mouth. Gilda spins around and asks Luca if her homemade cookies were good, promising they are totally safe. Luca ignores her and just quietly sips his drink. Sitting back down, Luca reads through the files, seeing how cleanly Alf took over the arena after the old bosses vanished. Since there were actually a few survivors left, Luca decides it is time to track them down. The screen shows a survivor named Ken Noma stuck in a psychiatric ward. Suddenly, a massive explosion outside shatters the silence. Moments later, an armored tank car flies down a makeshift ramp through the pouring rain. Luca is driving like a maniac as the car slams down. He complains that this flashy entrance is totally unnecessary for a hospital trip. Riding shotgun, a bruised Gabriel complains about his injuries and asks if Luca is hiding a dark secret. Luca totally denies it, but in his mind he remembers the gangster guy who just attacked them out of nowhere. So what do you and I make of this? Gabriel has zero clue how Luca saw the shooter, but things are getting crazy. Alright, stick with me. Luca just realized Gabriel wasn't hiding anything but the real issue. Someone totally leaked their secret route. His face instantly drops, which catches Gabriel completely off guard. Up on a roof, a sniper starts yelling, accusing Luca of crossing Aleph and ignoring all their threats. Gabriel screams right back from the car, swearing he has absolutely zero ties to that Coliseum boss. The sniper laughs. He knows Luca tried making a deal right after getting shot. Suddenly it clicks, the actual target here is Gabriel, and Luca desperately needs to figure out why. Luca casually asks Gabriel for a gun, noting his own gear is way too lethal for regular civilians. Snatching the arm-mounted cannon right off Gabriel, he ignores his partner whining about him, wielding something that insanely overpowered. Over the radio, the enemy smugly mocks them, saying Gabriel totally chose wrong. He adds that his sister just wanted to say hello. Now watch closely, this is insane. New gun in hand, Luca does some crazy mental math aiming high up. His system fully locks onto the target ready to fire. Right then, another sniper blasts a massive projectile straight at Luca. Boom! Luca's bullet perfectly intercepts the rocket mid-air. The explosion blasts the main shooter's hand off and he just screams in pure terrified confusion. Gabriel doesn't waste time blasting away at the henchmen and sending them running. Watching them scatter, Gabriel mutters that word sister, finally connecting the crazy dots. Back in the car, a hospital guard pipes up, promising backup will be there in exactly 3 minutes. Luca bluntly points out 3 minutes have already passed. Time to hire a completely new security team, buddy. The guy actually thanks him. Meanwhile, Gabriel casually strolls over and yanks a downed shooter up by the collar. He demands to know if this sister is Martina from the Lavu and Rose gang, the one hunting him for saying no. The hostage cracks and screams the hilarious truth. This whole massive attack, his sister literally has a huge crush on Gabriel. He explains Martina went totally psycho when Gabriel rejected her. Once she heard he got shot, she sprinted straight to Aleph. The guy admits she only joined up with the gang as a desperate excuse to get close to Gabriel again. Luca cuts the chatter right there. Ignoring Gabriel's loud protests, he tells the thug to inform Martina they will meet soon. Gabriel sighs, realizing they have to fix this mess, but wonders if her weird obsession might actually be useful. I know what you're thinking. A crazy yandere gang boss. Sounds bad. But Gabriel realizes he can totally exploit this advantage. A short drive later, they pull right up to the creepy psychiatric hospital. They finally reach Ken Noma's isolation room. He is just sitting there, back facing the heavy glass door. Without hesitating, the duo walks right in. Luca stares down the incredibly calm patient. Stepping closer, he calls out Ken Noma's name, confirming they found the exact right guy. Finding his target, Luca quickly introduces himself and demands some answers about that shady arena manager. Absolute silence. Luca closely studies the guy's totally catatonic, lifeless state. Gabriel steps in, saying it is pointless. Ken got tortured way past his breaking point and is basically a living corpse now. Hearing that Luca preps a temporary nerve-stimulating treatment the guards use, getting ready to stick it right into Ken. Luca mentions his intel, says Ken is completely obsessed with knives. Gabriel rolls his eyes, calling this a massive waste of time and wanting to leave. Out of nowhere, Luca ignores the warnings, steps right up and throws a lightning-fast jab straight at Ken's face. But wait, blocked, Ken's blade snaps up at the very last second. From that pure impact, life suddenly flashes back into his hollow eyes. Instantly, an insane blur of rapid-fire strikes erupts between them, sparks flying everywhere. But Luca is built different. He completely stops the deadly blade using just 2 fingers. Arm totally locked in place, Ken finally speaks. He mutters about feeling trapped in a swamp, officially confirming his name. Ken instantly figures out Luca wants intel. While Gabriel stands there totally shocked, Luca calmly explains he just needed to shock Ken's brain awake through combat. Still locked in that intense grip, Luca demands everything he knows about Tora's friends. But Ken just smirks, challenging him to give one single good reason to talk. Luca keeps it simple. He promises to break Ken out of this hellhole. Instantly, that sweet offer of freedom grabs his full attention. Then Luca turns right to Gabriel, asking him to hide Ken for a few days. He explains they desperately need to build a squad of reliable guys. And the plan gets even crazier. Luca casually suggests starting a brand new gang, making Gabriel the absolute boss. Gabriel immediately says no way, but Luca threatens to just replace him entirely. That makes Gabriel shut up and hesitate real quick. That is where we leave it. They desperately need spies down there. Trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. Stick with me here. The gang is officially formed and Luca tosses that knife right back to his new ally Ken Noma. Ken Noma takes the deal but gives a warning. He's short on time, so he dives right into the backstory Luca desperately needs. Cut to a moving car, and the facts finally start clicking for Luca. Turns out Tora had a mystery friend backing him up from the shadows, operating completely solo. Suddenly, it all makes perfect sense. Just like Luca used, Gabriel Professor Kinuan had built his very own underground network. Using Tora as a total decoy, Kinuan handpicked loyal heavy hitters to handle all his shady off-the-books missions behind closed doors. This hits Luca hard. By tracking his old teacher, isn't he basically just copying the exact same sneaky playbook? Staring up at this massive building, Luca realizes something. Sure, he's got a fresh clue now, but this whole mess is still way too complicated. His mission drags him straight into a giant freezing cold server room. He pulls up a glowing hologram screen and starts digging. And bingo, the search results prove his crazy theory was right on the money. Tora's big crash happened the exact same day Kinuan became a professor. Even with this scoop, Kinuan's endgame is a total mystery. For now, Luca decides patching up Ken Noma is the real priority. Then a nasty thought hits him. If their crew gets too massive, Gabriel might just crash and burn exactly like Tora did. Luca's whole mindset shifts. Honestly, Kinuan wasn't even the bad guy here, since his secret moves were the only reason Tora ever succeeded. His old master's tricky style finally makes sense. Kinuan perfectly played everyone by staying just far enough away to pull all the strings. That cold-blooded setup meant he never hesitated to sacrifice people. Even his absolute strongest and most loyal partners were just pawns. The whole ruthless plan was just to stay focused in the absolute chaos and basically survive. Now watch closely. Kinuan suddenly appears, interrupting Luca's deep thoughts, and just straight up congratulates him. The professor casually claims his only goal was making sure Luca finally grasped the true basics of the Acreia Victima style. Then Kinuan drops the bomb. Luca's next big move is to follow the master plan and become exactly like him. Cut to the training center. Kinuan just watches Luca from afar, casually sipping from his metal flask. Kinuan actually praises how ridiculously fast Luca hit the Meister level. Luca looks totally confused, forcing his old teacher to spell it out. A Meister is basically a top-tier instructor of Victima arts back when fighters were ranked strictly by levels. But with a super shady look, Kinuan waves the whole thing off, claiming that old ranking system is pretty much dead anyway. Luca instantly calls his bluff, highly doubting he was dragged here just for history. He warns his mentor not to push his buttons, bringing up his famously terrible temper. But Kinuan just smirks, firing back that real combat beats boring words. When Kinuan finally stands up, Luca does the math. Sure, his master is an absolute beast at Acreia's Victima, but his older body definitely has limits. Getting cocky, Luca flat out tells the veteran he cannot possibly win a fight in that condition. Suddenly, raw energy violently sparks around Kinuan's hand. He casually tells Luca to guard his head and chest. Luca spots a tiny sneaky shift in his old teacher's stance. Kinuan had secretly swapped out his entire right arm. Honestly, Luca is amazed. The guy's physical control perfectly hid the massive difference in weight and mechanics. Using high-powered cybernetics with fried nerves is basically suicide. But knowing that just slaps a dark, crazy smirk right onto Luca's face. You and I both know what's coming. Flexing his own metal arm, Luca realizes this crazy golden opportunity might never happen again. Dropping into a serious stance, Luca actually thanks his master out of respect. That wide, tense gap between them, the epic showdown has officially started. And just like that, boom, Luca hits the dirt fully, admitting he just got totally wrecked. Even with a huge physical edge, Luca is completely baffled. How did an old guy block his lightning-fast hits with a busted metal arm? Scraping himself off the floor, Luca asks if the guy can literally see the future. Kinuan flat out denies it. The master drops some wisdom. Acreia's Victima skills are mastered by violently stealing them. He tells Luca to start using his brain more. Class dismissed. Kinuan casually wraps up the brutal lesson, saying they will pick up the pain in their next session. Ken Noma's beaten face flashes in Luca's head, snapping him right back to his main mission. Getting back on his feet, Luca realizes a tough truth. To reach the next level, he has to walk this brutal, lonely path completely by himself. Even after getting dumped on, Luca helps his limping teacher walk. Kinuan jokes that he owes him a favor now, and Luca quietly nods. Walking together, it hits Luca. The one guy holding all the deep secrets is standing right beside him. That abandoned flask on the bench perfectly symbolizes their weird dynamic. They always keep this thick, unspoken emotional wall between them. On the awkward walk back, Kinuan randomly suggests Luca try dating before modding his body anymore. Luca just shrugs it off. But let's be real, you and I can see the truth. Pretending this toxic mentor dynamic didn't completely hurt him is a massive lie. Stick with me here. We always knew these two would eventually have to part ways. Luca had one last desperate wish lingering in his mind. He seriously did not want to deal with Kinuan personally. Meanwhile, sketchy cybernetic mercenaries are laughing around a table. Walking up, his buddy warns Luca these guys will do absolutely anything for cold cash. Hearing that, Luca grabs his friend right by the collar, annoyed. He needs actual useful people, not this garbage crowd. Gabriel then explains that Ken Noma is waiting upstairs in a second-floor room. Breaking him out of the hospital was not cheap at all. Luca then hands over the chip, telling them to guard it, and they just nod along. As Luca walks off, the sponsor tells Gabriel to remind these goons that he is running this operation, so they better take it seriously. Up on the second floor, Ken Noma is just sitting on his bed. When Luca finally steps inside, he hears Gabriel mentioning that Ken is technically still on the hospital registry. Gabriel adds that random visitors will only see guards and nurses keeping the secret safe. Hearing this perfect setup, a cold little smirk creeps onto the face of Luca. He grabs a vial and snaps it into a sick injection device. Luca steps up to Ken, holding the injector ready. Suddenly, a flying knife shoots straight at Ken Noma. Someone asks a very direct question. "Do you even know who I am?" Ken Noma, holding the blade, Ken nods, saying he recognizes him and that Luca is actually a pretty trustworthy guy. Now, clutching the knife himself, Luca casually invites Ken to have a little chat. Gabriel is suddenly shocked by the intense standoff between these two. Now watch closely. The guy leaps right off the bed and attacks, but Luca effortlessly blocks it. Realizing this guy used to be an absolute beast back in the day, Luca forces Ken backward. The impact sends Ken Noma stumbling right back onto the bed. Totally confused, Ken asks what they just did to him because his mind suddenly feels way clearer. Luca simply smiles and says he mixed up some special meds. Ken immediately demands to know where he learned that. Luca finally drops the bomb he is hunting the man who sponsored Tora. But before Luca can even finish, Ken begs for a smoke and a drink. Lighting up and taking a sip, Ken tells Luca to chill out, joking that he literally acts like a soldier. Right then, Ken suddenly remembers that Tora called him Noel. Ken keeps talking, saying Tora could never run a massive arena all by himself. It absolutely had to be because of that mysterious man. Hooked, Luca asks what went wrong. Ken reveals someone was skimming the arena profits, but before dropping more lore, Ken says he needs a favor first. Luca instantly figures out the favor is about Aleph. Ken nods, his eyes turning dark. He absolutely wants revenge for being left in this pathetic state. But Luca shoots him down fast. He and Aleph are business partners now, so this petty revenge thing needs to be dropped entirely. Luca then reminds Ken that Gabriel and his gang are protecting him right now. If he wants revenge, he can try it once he leaves this place. Ken cuts him off anyway, swearing he always keeps his promises, unlike some people. Luca just listens, noting how every single traitor always says the exact same thing. Glancing back at Gabriel in the background, he finally knows exactly who to trust. You and I both know what that means. The Torah records just blew his mind. The informant drops a hint, saying Aleph definitely has the files. He tells Luca to investigate companies starting with B since the laundered cash went straight to Noel. Getting this huge clue, Luca suddenly hears chaos erupting outside the room. Gabriel rushes over, asking what the heck is happening. Outside, a total badass woman steps on a knocked-out mercenary, loudly asking if these guys seriously thought they could win. Looking right at Gabriel, she roasts him, saying his subordinates need way better training. Gabriel just stares, asking why she violently crashed his place. Going down the stairs, Luca questions why she decided to appear. She casually defends herself, claiming it was a super sudden visit and she had some personal business to handle. The two just stare at each other in total silence. Breaking the quiet, Luca asks if she always just shows up to start insane trouble. Called out, she totally admits her mistake, but sarcastically asks if a heads up would have really helped. Luca just orders his crew to clean up, dragging Gabriel outside and banning all drinking. The trio then walks through a sprawling city beautifully lit up by glowing holograms. Strolling along, Gabriel mentions that Levi and Rose is an entire gang built just to protect women. He adds that most members grew up in the gang and their big boss is also a woman. Curious, Luca asks if they ever met, but Gabriel says he only saw her during an old security gig. Gabriel starts hyping up her gorgeous looks while Luca simply observes in quiet thought. So what do we take from this? Aleph might absolutely betray him soon. But right now Gabriel is his ride or die. Suddenly the woman turns and announces they finally reached their destination. Alright, stick with me here, our squad just arrived at the massive Serene Sea Pavilion. At the doors, the woman calls for Gabriel. He instantly asks if she wants another fight. She firmly warns him not to reject the lady this time around. It is his only way to survive, she claims. The doors open and Luca notices a thick red mist flooding the room. Suddenly, Luca's face drops completely. He knows exactly what is going on. Boom, Luca instantly takes out a girl, realizing this mist is meant to drug them. He screams that he will blow the head off anyone who moves. One guard actually tries to attack, but gets instantly blasted right in the head. Stepping through the smoke, a mysterious woman holding a fan tells everyone to stand down. The boss lady demands to know who let them disrespect her guests. Instantly, one of her terrified subordinates bows and apologizes for the absolute mess. Gabriel is absolutely furious, but Luca steps in and tells him to cool it. Luca casually explains they just came to talk, though he knows she wanted to eliminate him without getting her own hands dirty. She apologizes for her overzealous guards and straight up asks for Luca's name. Luca gives his name, but when she asks what he does down in the lower sectors, he bluntly says it is none of her business. Now, pay attention, because here is where the tension spikes. She reveals they are standing right inside Levi and Rose. Luca just laughs in her face. She warns him that having noble blood will not keep him safe in a place like this. Martina glares from behind her fan as Luca mocks them, saying some people only act tough because they hang out in big groups. Noticing her absolute rage, Martina's subordinate nervously steps up and begs her to calm down. The servant leans in to whisper something to Martina while Luca watches closely. Snap! Martina aggressively shuts her fan. She turns on her heel and orders the boys to follow her inside. Leading them into her private room, Martina skips the small talk. Sitting down, she drops a massive bombshell. The only thing she actually wants is to date Gabriel. Luca is completely stunned. Why would a powerful woman like her want Gabriel when her status could literally buy anyone else? Gabriel just mutters that he hates being treated like somebody's pet. Luca quickly corrects him. He is just a financial sponsor, not Gabriel's actual boss. Gabriel loudly agrees that Luca is not his boss, which makes Martina smirk. Hilariously, Luca suggests Gabriel should just date her since he could easily balance romance and work. Honestly confused by his friend's refusal, Luca casually asks what the big problem is. You and I both saw that coming, right? Gabriel panics because Martina is literally older than his own grandmother. Pure comedy. Sweating bullets, Gabriel stammers he would rather die than date her, even if she still looks incredibly good for her age. Seeing this absolute mess, Luca just facepalms in pure, unadulterated exhaustion. Changing tactics, Luca explains that Gabriel leads a new gang and can no longer visit this club. Plus, thanks to his solid connections with Alf from the arena, Gabriel's crew is already set up and ready to dominate the streets. Unfazed, Martina smiles and confidently claims she has never lost a man she truly wanted. Luca absolutely roasts her, joking that experiencing a first time at her advanced age is actually super rare, total emotional damage. Ignoring the insult, Martina looks straight at Gabriel. She promises him unimaginable wealth and power, practically begging the poor guy to stay by her side. Hearing this crazy proposal, Gabriel just grinds his teeth, sweating nervously from sheer embarrassment. The tension in the room is suffocating. Complete silence as everyone waits. Sighing dramatically, Martina accepts the rejection. Flipping a switch, she decides to talk business, instead asking why they even formed a gang. She admits she has zero interest in making enemies with someone as bold as Luca. Gabriel is totally confused by this mood swing. Suddenly, Martina mocks Gabriel, claiming she usually only goes for really ugly guys anyway. Laughing like a villain, she calls Gabriel completely pathetic. Just imagining him bowing at her feet gives her absolute chills. Watching his buddy get roasted, Luca casually remarks that nobles clearly have incredibly weird tastes in men. Brushing off the drama, Martina composes herself and officially shifts things back to business. The view cuts to a massive glowing hologram advertising the underground fighting arena. Meanwhile, Alf praises Luca's genius for securing business with Levi and Rose. Right after the meeting, Luca actually allied Gabriel's entire gang with both the arena and Martina's club. With that rumor hitting the streets, absolutely nobody will dare mess with their gang. New fighters will flock to them, plus Luca knows Alf works for Tora and fully expects him to keep playing his part. That's where we leave it today under these street holograms. Trust me, you are going to love this start. Martina's subordinate asks if Luca actually trusts their new ally. Luca says she's blind to even ask. He adds that trusting anyone is tough. Humans, way too unpredictable to rely on. He remembers Martina offering him one of her girls. It turns out this ex-soldier was seriously skilled even without finishing her full combat training. Luca figures it out instantly. Martina is just trying to uncover his real identity. Still, she's way more useful than Gabriel's idiot gang. Since she agreed to handle security, Luca sees it as a win. That is, until the girl suddenly asks if he comes from a big military family. Luca casually asks why she'd think that. Her answer, because he is insanely strong. Plus, he is way too young to have completely defeated her that easily. Luca mocks her confidence, but she fires back saying she didn't leave because she was weak. Actually, she was the top student in her entire battalion. So why did she leave? She shuts him down fast. They are definitely not close enough to share heavy personal secrets yet. He drops the subject right there. Even so, she totally insists on escorting him all the way. Right before parting ways, she teases him. She claims he isn't actually stronger than her, gives a super formal goodbye, and leaves. He just watches her walk away. Standing alone in a dark alley, Luca remembers Ken's advice. Check Tora's books for companies, starting with letter B. He is certain this will help trace Noel, an alias he strongly suspects Kinyuan uses. But staring at the data, Luca finds out every single company closed down years ago. He realizes fast that he needs better info. This current system is absolutely packed with fake data. Watch closely because things get serious here. The only real option is accessing the Imperial data system. Knowing the massive cost, he makes the call anyway. The second it connects, a smooth voice greets him, noting that he's been extremely busy lately. Nicholas suggests skipping the small talk. Luca asks for Imperial database access. Denied. So he pivots and asks him to investigate those closed companies instead. Nicholas asks if this little favor will boost Luca's family reputation. Luca quickly confirms it, hearing that Nicholas agrees to help out and asks for the list. He promises results in 2 hours, adding that brothers should help each other. Hanging up, Luca feels absolute disgust at his fake brotherly vibe. Whatever the price of this favor is, he ignores it. Right now, completing his mission is the only priority. Taking a breath, Luca thinks about the crazy amount of alliances he has formed. Alfken, Noma Gabriel's gang, and Levi on Rose. The whole night was just endless negotiations and his head is spinning. Completely dead on his feet, he crashes onto his bed. He figures the absolute worst thing right now would be his new dad calling. He shoves his face into the pillow. All he wants is 5 minutes of total peace. I know what you're thinking. Nap time, nope. A sudden message pops up from Nicholas. His mission isn't over yet. Scanning the mission report, Luca wonders exactly how many of these crazy jobs Ali took while he was gone. It hits him. His buddy has been volunteering for completely optional side quests. That explains why Ali vanished. He remembers Ali making a promise. From that day forward, the guy swore he would stop running away. Feeling nostalgic, Luca decides to go check on him. He looks up Ali's status. He is resting in his personal repair room and looks totally free. Before he can even move, a random woman walks up and asks if he heard the latest gossip. She drops a bombshell. Ali is going absolutely crazy with missions. If he keeps pushing this hard, he's going to lose his first place rank. Luca doesn't blink. He just turns and calmly replies, "We will see." She instantly teases him. Does all this confidence come from getting adopted into the elite caster family? She tells him to relax. But Luca just thinks to himself, these people know absolutely nothing. Cue the flashback. He remembers the old days. Pulling a trigger on command was so easy. No moral judgment, no picking sides, just pure execution. But now he is doing it all solo. Nobody to trust. Just constantly fighting the massive urge to quit everything. Yeah, he misses the simple past. But this was his choice. If he screws up now, he's basically dead meat. Survival means solving his own messes. He needs to reach the absolute peak, becoming a legend like Kinuan or Hylas. Catching his dark look, the woman quickly apologizes. She admits she was just worried since he had been completely missing. He smoothly brushes it off. This is his new power now, the crazy strength and prestige he always wanted. He adds that climbing the ranks takes tiny steps, at least until the nobles start paying real attention. Then he casually admits he hasn't slept in days. Playing the noble game isn't exactly a walk in the park, but honestly, he is going to keep rising no matter what. And that's where we leave it. Luca heads to the repair room only to find Ali completely sealed inside a high-tech maintenance capsule. Let's dive right back in. Soon as Eli spots him, he casually greets Luca, who just nods. Noticing Eli's completely wrecked hand, Luca realizes the guy has been through absolute hell. He mentions Lord Castoria making moves, but Eli just brushes it off, nothing compared to Luca's crazy stunts. Luca suddenly remembers the warning about losing his top rank. Is Eli actually stronger than him now? Clearly, Eli wasn't bluffing. Luca realizes he desperately needs to upgrade his own fighting style to keep up. Standing up, Eli flashes a grin. He teases Luca, asking if having a popular guy as a friend comes with perks. Luca just shrugs off the teasing with a fond smirk. Already throwing his clothes on, Eli tells Luca to follow him. Time to show off his newest loot. Now, pay attention because this is wild. Inside a lab, a massive mechanical beast floats in a tank. Eli asks if it's cool. Suddenly, Luca understands his friend's insane confidence. Luca instantly recognizes it, a beast from planet Novis, nearly impossible to catch. Yeah, his buddy definitely leveled up hard. But seriously, what does this metal monster have to do with arcane civilization? Eli admits nothing is 100% confirmed, but the connection is obvious. He explains the craziest part: even though they are totally metal, these beasts have complex structures. They reproduce and evolve themselves. Meanwhile, Eli just taps the glass, a massive grin spreading. Flashing back to that exact same smile in his memory, Luca asks the million-dollar question, is it actually possible to tame these crazy things? Eli just shrugs. No solid precedent, so there's no right answer yet. Back out on the balcony, Luca asks what happens to the beast now. Eli drops the bad news. This might be Luca's last look since it's getting shipped to the Royal Palace Research Lab. Hearing that Luca figures the creature is stuck there for good, Eli just gives a sly, sideways smirk. Then out of nowhere, he whips out a dagger he also scored. Luca's eyes go wide. A commander's ceremonial knife carved from extinct animal bone. Literally impossible to fake or replicate, but is a weapon made entirely out of bone actually useful in a real full-on battle. You probably didn't see this coming. Eli tells him to grip it tight, then suddenly attacks. The strike completely blocks against the knife. Still holding it, Luca thought it was just a showpiece. Suddenly, raw energy violently erupts from the blade. Flashing a grin, Eli reveals it is actually a congratulatory gift. You know, to celebrate Luca potentially becoming the official Castoria family heir. He explains the blade is called Always White. And trust him, it is definitely not some basic everyday present. Not totally sure if he's being mocked, Luca listens as Eli swears he is being completely sincere. Quietly, Luca accepts the offered dagger. Walking under the vast city sky, he promises to make damn good use of it. Soon, he heads back into his room, still holding the gift. Finally alone, he closely examines his brand new, overpowered gift. Luca starts thinking deep. In a doomed universe, our little lives seem like completely insignificant fragments. Still, he knows prestige life and bonds have to keep pushing forward until the very end. He chuckles, admitting to himself he's getting way too sentimental, but whatever, he can't help it. Staring at the blade, Luca realizes this is the very first genuine gift he has ever received. A second later, a soft smile hits his face. Nicholas really knows how to deliver.